Emma Calloway thought the worst night of her life was losing her father to a supposed heart attack and watching the man she loved walk away without explanation. She was wrong. Tonight, at her cousin's engagement party inside Manhattan's most exclusive country club, her ex-boyfriend just humiliated her in front of 200 people who already think she's beneath them. And then a man she's never seen before, tall, dangerous, radiating lethal power, walks straight through the crowd, cups her face in his gloved hand, and kisses her like he owns her soul. When he pulls back and introduces himself as her husband to the shocked ballroom, Emma realizes her real nightmare is just beginning. Stay with this story until the end. Hit like and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. The champagne tower glittered under crystal chandeliers like a monument to everything Emma Calloway no longer had. She stood 3 feet away from it, spine pressed against the marble pillar, trying to make herself invisible, while 200 of Manhattan's wealthiest people pretended she didn't exist. Her cousin Victoria's engagement party sprawled across the entire ballroom of the Riverside Country Club. White roses everywhere, string quartet playing something classical and expensive, waiters gliding between clusters of designer gowns and bespoke suits. Emma wore a black dress she'd bought on sale 2 years ago. It still fit, barely, but it looked exactly like what it was. Cheap fabric pretending to be silk under lighting designed to expose every flaw. She shouldn't have come. But Victoria had insisted, and Emma's mother had given her that look, the one that said, please just try to fit in one more time. So here she stood, clutching a glass of champagne she couldn't afford to replace if she spilled it, watching people who used to tolerate her back when her father was alive now avoid eye contact like poverty was contagious. Emma Calloway, didn't expect to see you here. She closed her eyes. Of course he would find her. Preston Vale stood 5 feet away, surrounded by 3 other men in tailored suits that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. He looked exactly like he always had. Sharp jaw, perfect hair, the kind of smile that knew it was handsome and expected you to be grateful for it. Emma had loved that smile once, before she learned it could cut just as easily as it could charm. Preston, her voice came out steadier than she felt. Congratulations on the promotion. He'd made partner at his father's investment firm 6 months ago. Emma had seen the announcement online while eating ramen in her studio apartment and trying not to think about how different her life might have been. Thanks. Preston took a step closer, and his friends followed like sharks smelling blood. How's teaching? Still doing the kindergarten thing? The way he said kindergarten thing made it sound like a hobby, like something people did when they couldn't handle real work. It's good, Emma said. The kids are great. I bet. Preston's smile widened, but his eyes stayed cold. Must be rewarding. You know, making a difference in small ways. One of his friends, Carter Morrison, Emma remembered him from college, snorted into his drink. Small ways, that's generous, Preston. I mean, not everyone can handle high-stakes environments. Preston gestured vaguely at the ballroom around them, as if this party represented some kind of Darwinian achievement. Some people are just better suited for simpler things. Coloring books, nap time, that kind of stuff. Emma's fingers tightened around her champagne glass. Her father's voice echoed in the back of her mind. Don't let them see you break. He'd taught her that. Right before he died and left her drowning in debt she still didn't understand. Teaching children to read isn't simple, she said quietly. But you wouldn't know anything about that. Preston's smile flickered. Right. Because I'm too busy actually contributing to the economy, making real money, building something that matters. Your father's company matters, Emma corrected. You just showed up. The temperature around them dropped 10 degrees. Carter stopped smiling. The other 2 men exchanged glances. Preston's jaw tightened in that way it always did right before he said something cruel. At least I showed up, he said. At least I didn't run away the second things got hard. Emma felt the hit land somewhere below her ribs. Preston knew exactly what he was doing. He'd been there a year ago when her father died suddenly, when the medical bills and funeral costs and mysterious debt started piling up like an avalanche she couldn't outrun. He'd been there when she'd had to sell the childhood home, liquidate her father's belongings, move into a shoebox apartment in Queens, and take the only full-time teaching position she could find. He'd been there for exactly 2 weeks of that nightmare before he stopped returning her calls. You left, Emma said. Her voice came out quieter than she wanted. You just disappeared. Because I saw reality. Preston leaned closer, and Emma smelled expensive cologne mixed with bourbon. Your dad died broke, Emma. Worse than broke. He died owing people money he'd never pay back, and everyone knew it. You think I was going to tie myself to that sinking ship? You think my family would have allowed it? We were engaged, Emma whispered. We were kids playing house, Preston shot back. And when reality showed up, I grew up. You should try it sometime. Carter laughed again. The sound cut through Emma like glass. Around them, conversations continued, beautiful people discussing vacation homes and stock portfolios and charity galas, but Emma felt like she was drowning in the middle of a crowded room and nobody even noticed. I did grow up, she said. I just didn't grow into an asshole. Preston's expression went nuclear. For a second, Emma thought he might actually throw his drink at her. Then something worse happened. He smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, Preston said loudly, raising his voice just enough to catch the attention of nearby groups. I'd like to propose a toast. Emma's stomach dropped. Don't. To my ex-fiancée, Emma Calloway, Preston continued, ignoring her. More heads turned. The string quartet kept playing, but conversations started dying around them like lights going out. Who teaches kindergarten in Queens and still thinks she belongs at parties like this? Someone laughed. Then someone else. The sound spread through the ballroom like wildfire. Preston, stop, Emma said, but her voice had no weight. She sounded exactly like what she was, a woman begging not to be humiliated. I mean, give her credit, Preston said to his growing audience. It takes real courage to show up wearing a knockoff dress and pretend you still fit in. That's dedication. It's not a knockoff, Emma heard herself say, even though it was, and everyone knew it. Heat flooded her face. Her hands started shaking. The champagne glass felt slippery in her grip. Right, Preston said. My mistake. It's vintage. The laughter got louder. Victoria appeared at the edge of Emma's vision, looking horrified, but not horrified enough to actually intervene. Emma's mother sat frozen at a table across the room, her face pale and stricken. Nobody moved to help. They never did. You know what the saddest part is? Preston kept going, riding the wave of his own cruelty. She actually thought she was good enough. When her dad was alive and pretending to be somebody, she really believed she belonged here, like she was one of us. Emma felt something crack inside her chest, not her heart. That had already broken a year ago when Preston stopped answering her calls, and her father's body went cold in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and lies. This was something deeper. Something that sounded like the last thread of dignity snapping under too much weight. She should leave, walk out, let them laugh. It didn't matter. None of this mattered, but her legs wouldn't move. Nothing to say? Preston pressed. Come on, Emma, defend yourself. Tell everyone how noble you are. How teaching 5-year-olds to spell their names is just as important as running a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio. Emma started. The ballroom doors opened. Every conversation died instantly. Emma turned her head and saw what silenced 200 people mid-sentence. A man stood in the entrance. He was tall, 6'3", maybe 6'4", dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than most people's cars. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble if marble could look dangerous. He didn't smile, didn't hesitate, just walked into the ballroom like he owned it, and maybe the entire building, and possibly the whole city while he was at it. 2 men in matching black suits flanked him, hands resting casually near their waistbands in a way that made Emma's hindbrain scream guns. The stranger moved through the crowd like a blade cutting silk. People shifted out of his way without being asked. Men in $10,000 suits suddenly found their shoes fascinating. Women stared openly before their husbands pulled them back. Emma watched him approach with the same detached horror she'd felt watching her father's casket lower into the ground. There was something inevitable about it, something final. He walked straight toward her, not toward the champagne tower, not toward Victoria and her fiancé, not toward the small stage where the band had stopped playing mid-note. Straight toward Emma. Preston's smile evaporated. His face went the color of old paper. "Oh, fuck," he whispered. The stranger stopped 2 feet away from Emma, and she finally got a good look at his eyes. They were dark. Not brown, Something deeper, colder, like the bottom of the ocean where light stopped reaching. He looked at her the way a surgeon might study an incision, clinical, focused, and completely unreadable. Then he reached up with one gloved hand, cupped the side of Emma's face, and kissed her. The ballroom dissolved. Emma's brain short-circuited. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was possessive, claiming, the kind of kiss that announced ownership to everyone watching. His mouth moved against hers with absolute certainty, while his thumb brushed her cheekbone, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. He tasted like mint and something darker Emma couldn't identify. When he pulled back, Emma's lips were numb and her heart was trying to punch through her ribs. The stranger kept his hand on her face, angling her toward him while he addressed the silent ballroom. "Apologies for the interruption," he said. His voice was deep, controlled, with an accent Emma couldn't place, something European buried under American polish. "I'm Luca DeSantis, Emma's husband." The world stopped spinning. Husband. Emma's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Around her, 200 people stood frozen in various states of shock. Preston looked like he'd been electrocuted. Victoria's jaw had literally dropped. "I know," Luca continued, still holding Emma's face like she might bolt if he let go. "We kept it quiet. Emma wanted a private ceremony. I agreed." Emma tried to form words. But I couldn't stay away tonight." Luca's thumb traced her jawline, and the gesture looked so natural Emma almost believed it herself. "Not when I heard she'd be here. You understand?" Nobody understood anything. Preston finally found his voice. You're married?" His eyes swung between Emma and Luca like he was watching a tennis match in hell. "Since when?" "6 months," Luca said smoothly. He pulled Emma against his side with one arm, and she went because her legs had stopped taking orders from her brain. "Best decision I ever made." "That's not possible," Preston said, but his voice cracked halfway through. "Emma wouldn't. She doesn't." "She does," Luca interrupted. The temperature of his voice dropped 20 degrees, "and she's mine." The way he said mine made Emma's skin prickle. It wasn't romantic. It was territorial, a wolf marking boundaries. Preston's face went from pale to red to something approaching purple. "Do you know who he is?" He addressed this to Emma, his voice climbing toward hysteria. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Emma had no idea what she'd done, considering she hadn't done anything, but Preston seemed genuinely terrified now. Sweat beaded along his hairline. His hands trembled when he set down his champagne glass. "Everyone knows who Luca DeSantis is," Carter Morrison muttered from somewhere behind Preston. He sounded like he was trying not to throw up. "Jesus Christ, Emma." Luca's arm tightened around Emma's waist. "I don't believe we've been introduced," he said to Preston. The politeness in his voice was somehow more threatening than shouting would have been. "You are?" "Preston Vale." It came out as a wheeze. I was Emma's ex-fiancé," Luca finished. "Yes, she's mentioned you." Emma had never mentioned anything to this man because she'd never met this man, but Preston didn't know that. He took a step backward, then another, like he was trying to get out of range of something explosive. I wasn't trying to," Preston stammered. "You were trying to humiliate my wife in front of 200 people, Luca said calmly. "In my experience, that's exactly what you meant to do." The ballroom was so quiet, Emma could hear her own heartbeat. Luca's hand rested against her hip, warm even through the fabric of her dress, while his other hand hung loose at his side. He looked relaxed, like he attended parties and dropped conversational grenades every weekend. Preston opened his mouth, closed it, looked toward his friends for support and found them backing away slowly. "I apologize," Preston finally managed. "I didn't realize. I wouldn't have." "You wouldn't have insulted her if you'd known she was protected," Luca said. "But you were perfectly comfortable doing it when you thought she was alone." Preston's face went gray. Luca turned his attention back to Emma, and when he looked at her, his expression softened fractionally, almost imperceptibly, like he was remembering to play a role. "Let's go home," he murmured. He said it quietly, intimately, like they were alone instead of standing in front of Manhattan's social elite. "You've had a long night." Emma's brain finally rebooted enough to form coherent thought. "I don't know you," she whispered. "I know," Luca said, just as quietly. His dark eyes held hers with an intensity that felt like drowning. But you will. Play along if you want to stay alive. The last sentence hit Emma like a bucket of ice water. Play along if you want to stay alive. Not play along and I'll explain later. Not trust me. Play along if you want to stay alive. Luca's hand moved from her hip to the small of her back, guiding her gently but firmly toward the exit. Emma's feet moved automatically, carrying her past Preston's frozen expression, past Victoria's shock, past her mother's white face and trembling hands. Nobody tried to stop them. The two men in black suits materialized on either side of them as they reached the ballroom doors. One of them opened the door, the other spoke quietly into a radio. "Wait," Emma said. Her voice came out thin and shaky. "I can't just... My mother is..." "She'll be fine," Luca said. "Safer without you, actually." Emma's stomach lurched. What does that mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. Luca guided her through the lobby of the country club, past gawking valets and confused staff. Outside, 3 black SUVs idled at the curb, engines running, windows tinted dark enough to be illegal. "Get in the car, Emma." "No," Emma heard herself say. "I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't know who you are or what kind of game this is, but..." Luca moved faster than she could track. 1 second they were standing on the sidewalk. The next, Emma's back was against the cool metal of the SUV and Luca's body was blocking the entire world from view. His hands bracketed her shoulders, not touching but close enough to feel the heat radiating off them. "This isn't a game," he said. His voice stayed level, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Your father came to me 2 months before he died, asked me to protect you if anything happened to him. He knew someone was going to kill him, and he knew they'd come for you next." Emma's lungs stopped working. "My father had a heart attack. Your father was murdered," Luca said flatly. "Poison that mimicked cardiac arrest. Clean, professional. The kind of hit that costs 6 figures and leaves no evidence." The sidewalk tilted under Emma's feet. "That's insane. Why would anyone—" "Because he found something." Luca's eyes bored into hers. "Something worth killing for. And the people who killed him think you know where it is." Emma shook her head violently. "I don't know anything. I don't have anything. After he died, I went through everything. His office, his files, his safety deposit box. And there was nothing. Just debt and medical bills and..." "They don't believe that," Luca interrupted. "Which means you have 2 choices. Come with me now and stay alive long enough to figure out what your father was hiding. Or stay here, go back to your apartment in Queens, and be dead before sunrise." Emma stared at him, at his expensive suit and dangerous eyes, and the 2 armed men standing 10 feet away pretending not to listen, at the SUVs with their tinted windows and the way the valet attendants were carefully not making eye contact. "Who are you?" she whispered. Luca's expression didn't change. "Someone you're going to learn to trust very quickly." He opened the SUV door behind Emma, and the interior was all black leather and tinted glass. Emma looked back at the country club, where 200 people had just watched the stranger claim her as his wife, where her mother still sat at that table, probably crying now, where her entire life had just imploded in the space of 5 minutes. "My mother will be protected," Luca said. "I have people watching her. As long as you're with me, they won't touch her." Emma wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to wake up from whatever nightmare she'd stumbled into. Instead, she got in the car. Luca slid in beside her, and one of the armed men took the front passenger seat while another closed the door behind them. The locks engaged with a heavy thunk that sounded like a prison cell closing. The SUV pulled away from the curb, and through the tinted windows, Emma watched the Riverside Country Club shrink into the distance, the place where her cousin was getting engaged, where Preston Vale had tried to destroy her, where a stranger named Luca DeSantis had kissed her in front of Manhattan's elite and claimed her as his wife. She pressed her shaking hands against her thighs and tried to breathe. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Home," Luca said. "I don't have a home," Emma said. "I have a studio apartment with water stains on the ceiling and neighbors who sell drugs on weeknights." "Not anymore." Luca pulled off his gloves, revealing hands with scarred knuckles and a tattoo on his left wrist Emma couldn't quite make out. "As of tonight, you live with me." Emma's laugh came out sharp and borderline hysterical. "You can't be serious." "I'm always serious." Luca glanced at her and something in his expression shifted, almost softened. I know this is terrifying. I know you don't understand, but your father trusted me with your life. I'm not going to waste that. My father didn't know any criminals, Emma said. He was a financial analyst. He worked for a hedge fund. He worked for a hedge fund that laundered money for 3 different crime syndicates, Luca said, including the people who killed him. The SUV interior suddenly felt airless. Emma's vision swam. No. Yes. Luca's voice stayed level, almost gentle. He discovered the laundering operation 6 months before he died, started collecting evidence, and when he realized how deep it went, how many powerful people were involved, he reached out to me. Why you? Emma's voice cracked. Why would he reach out to a... She stopped. Couldn't make herself say the word. Criminal, Luca finished. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because I'm the only one powerful enough to protect you from the people who killed him, and because your father and I had history. Emma waited. We grew up in the same neighborhood, Luca said quietly. Before your family moved to Manhattan and his life went one direction and mine went another. He still owed me a favor from 20 years ago. So when he needed someone outside the law, someone those people couldn't touch, he called me. The SUV glided through Manhattan traffic, and Emma watched the city lights blur past. Her city. The place she'd grown up, where she'd thought she understood the rules, where everything had made sense until a year ago when it all fell apart. I don't know where my father hid anything, she said finally. I really don't. I believe you, Luca said. But they won't, which means we need to find it first. And if we don't? Luca looked at her, and for the first time Emma saw something that might have been regret flash across his face. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The SUV turned onto a private street Emma didn't recognize. Buildings here had names instead of addresses. Doormen in actual uniforms. Trees planted in perfect rows like soldiers standing guard. They pulled up in front of a glass tower that seemed to pierce the sky itself. The armed man in the passenger seat got out first, scanned the street, then opened Emma's door. Luca emerged from the other side and came around to her. This way. Emma followed because she didn't know what else to do. Through automatic doors into a lobby that was all white marble and modern art. Past a security desk where 2 more armed men nodded at Luca without speaking. Into a private elevator that required a key card and went straight to the penthouse without stopping. The elevator doors opened directly into an apartment that could have been featured in architecture magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Furniture that was probably custom-made. Art on the walls that looked expensive even to Emma's untrained eye. Everything clean, minimal, aggressively masculine. Guest room is down that hall, Luca said, pointing. Second door on the left. You'll find clothes in the closet. Bathroom is stocked. If you need anything, there's an intercom system. Emma stood frozen in the middle of the living room. You expect me to just stay here? I expect you to stay alive, Luca said. Everything else is negotiable. He walked toward what looked like a home office, already pulling out his phone. Get some sleep, Emma. Tomorrow we start figuring out what your father died protecting. Emma watched him disappear into the office. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. She stood alone in the penthouse of a man she'd never met, wearing her cousin's engagement party, trying to process the fact that her father had been murdered, and she'd apparently married a criminal, and her entire life was now a lie she'd been living without knowing it. Her legs gave out. Emma sank onto the nearest couch and pressed her face into her hands. She should cry, should scream, should do something other than sit here feeling numb. Instead, she pulled out her phone. 7 missed calls from her mother, 11 texts from Victoria, 3 voicemails from numbers she didn't recognize. She opened the text from Victoria first. What the fuck just happened? Emma, call me immediately. Who is that man? Do you know who Luca DeSantis is? Oh my God. Emma, what have you done? Emma closed the messages without responding. She pulled up a search engine instead and typed in the name, Luca DeSantis. The results filled her screen. Articles from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, tabloid pieces with phrases like alleged organized crime and federal investigation, and East Coast syndicate. Photos of Luca leaving courthouses, always in expensive suits, always surrounded by lawyers who cost more per hour than Emma made in a month. One headline from 6 months ago. DeSantis organization cleared of racketeering charges. Critics call it a miscarriage of justice. Emma's hands started shaking again. She'd gotten into a car with someone federal prosecutors considered a mob boss. She was sitting in his penthouse. He'd kissed her in front of 200 witnesses and claimed her as his wife. And according to him, her father, her quiet, gentle father who'd coached her softball team and taught her to balance a checkbook and never missed a parent-teacher conference, had been murdered by criminals he'd tried to expose. Emma's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Hello? Emma Calloway. The voice was male, smooth, unfamiliar. We need to talk about your husband. Emma's blood turned to ice. Who is this? A friend, the voice said. Someone who wants to help you before you make a mistake you can't take back. I don't need help, Emma said automatically. Yes, you do. The voice hardened. Luca DeSantis is a dangerous man. Whatever he told you tonight, whatever lies he sold you, none of it is true. He doesn't care about protecting you. He cares about what your father was hiding. Emma stood up, pacing toward the windows. Manhattan glittered below, millions of lights hiding millions of secrets. How do you know what he told me? Because I know how he operates, the man said. He'll keep you close, make you dependent on him, convince you that leaving means death. And once he gets what he wants, he'll dispose of you like he does everyone else. What do you want? Emma whispered. To offer you a way out, the man said, before it's too late, before you're in so deep you can't surface. Emma's reflection stared back at her from the dark window, a woman in a cheap black dress, trapped 40 stories above the city, talking to a stranger who knew too much. I'll think about it, she said. Don't think too long, the man said. Luca DeSantis doesn't give second chances, and neither do the people who killed your father. The line went dead. Emma lowered the phone slowly. Behind her, Luca's office door remained closed. She could see a sliver of light under the door, hear the murmur of his voice as he spoke to someone on the phone. She walked down the hall he'd indicated earlier and found the guest room. It was bigger than her entire apartment, king-sized bed with white linens, abstract painting above the headboard, closet filled with women's clothes in her exact size. Emma sat on the edge of the bed and stared at those clothes. Luca had known she was coming here, had prepared for it, had bought clothes in her size before tonight even happened. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't spontaneous. This had been planned. Emma lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this building, armed men stood guard. Somewhere in this city, people who'd killed her father were looking for whatever he'd hidden. Somewhere between those two facts, Emma Calloway had ceased to exist as a kindergarten teacher from Queens. She was someone else now, someone who belonged to Luca DeSantis. She closed her eyes, but sleep felt impossible. Every time she started to drift, she saw Preston's terrified face, felt Luca's lips against hers, heard that voice on the phone promising her a way out. Hours passed. The city lights dimmed. Traffic sounds faded. Emma's exhaustion finally dragged her under into dreams filled with her father's face and the smell of hospital disinfectant, and a man in a black suit who kissed her like he was claiming something that had always belonged to him. She woke to darkness and the sound of her own breathing, and the realization that someone was standing in her doorway. Emma sat up fast, heart hammering. Who? Just me, Luca said quietly. He was silhouetted against the hallway light, still wearing his suit, but with the jacket gone and the tie loosened. Heard you moving around. Wanted to make sure you were okay. Emma pulled the blanket up to her chest. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Luca leaned against the doorframe, not coming closer. But you'll learn. Learn what? How to survive in my world, Luca said. How to move through rooms full of people who want to hurt you without letting them see you bleed. I don't want to be in your world, Emma said. Neither did your father, Luca replied. But here we are. Silence stretched between them. Emma could barely make out his features in the dark, but she felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Tomorrow morning, Luca said finally, we're going to your father's safety deposit box. I have people who can access it without triggering any red flags. If he hid something, that's where we start. I already went through it, Emma said. There was nothing. Then we'll look again. Luca straightened. Try to sleep, Emma. You'll need your strength. He started to turn away. Why did you really come to that party? Emma asked. The truth. Luca paused. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost sad. Because your father made me promise, he said. And I don't break promises to dead men. He disappeared into the darkness of the hallway, and Emma heard his footsteps fade toward another part of the penthouse. She lay back down and stared at the ceiling. Outside, Manhattan hummed with its endless noise. Inside, Emma felt herself standing on the edge of something vast and dark and infinitely deep. One step forward, and she'd be falling. One step back, and she'd die. There was no third option. So Emma closed her eyes and tried to forget the feeling of Luca's lips against hers, and the terror in Preston's eyes, and the way her father's voice used to sound when he told her everything was going to be okay. Because nothing was okay. And Emma was beginning to suspect it never would be again. Emma woke to gunmetal light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee she hadn't made. For 3 confused seconds, she thought she was back in her studio apartment in Queens, late for work, about to scramble into yesterday's clothes and sprint for the subway. Then she saw the custom furniture and remembered everything. She sat up slowly. Her black dress from the party lay draped over a chair she didn't remember putting it on. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt she definitely hadn't gone to sleep in. The implications of that made her stomach turn over, but when she looked down, her underwear was still on. Someone had undressed her just enough to be comfortable without crossing the last line. She didn't know if that made it better or worse. The bedroom door was cracked open. Emma could hear voices, low, male, speaking in clipped sentences that sounded like military radio chatter. She climbed out of bed, legs unsteady, and found a pair of sweatpants folded on the dresser. They fit perfectly. Of course they did. She walked barefoot down the hallway toward the voices. The penthouse looked different in daylight, less threatening somehow. The art on the walls was abstract, expensive, the kind of thing Emma had seen in museums and never understood. Through the windows, Manhattan sprawled in every direction, buildings and bridges, and the Hudson River cutting silver through the morning haze. Luca stood in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, while 2 men in tactical gear drank coffee at the breakfast bar. They all looked up when Emma appeared. Luca ended his call immediately. You're awake. Apparently, Emma's voice came out rough. Did you undress me? Maria did, Luca said, nodding toward a woman Emma hadn't noticed standing near the coffee maker. She was older, 50s maybe, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun and the kind of face that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. She's been with my family for 20 years. She doesn't speak much English, but she's trustworthy. Maria said something in rapid Italian and poured Emma a cup of coffee without being asked. Black, 2 sugars, Luca said. That's how you take it, right? Emma stared at him. How do you know that? Your father told me. Luca gestured to the breakfast bar. Sit. Eat something. We leave in 30 minutes. Emma took the coffee because her hands needed something to hold. Leave for where? Your father's bank, Luca said. The safety deposit box you already went through. We're going to look again. One of the tactical guys, buzz-cut, scar across his eyebrow, set down his coffee. Boss, we got confirmation on the surveillance. 3 cars rotated through her street last night. Different plates, same profile. They're definitely watching the old address. Good, Luca said. Let them watch an empty apartment. Emma's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. Someone's watching my apartment? Someone's been watching it for 6 months, Luca said. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. Ever since your father died, you just didn't notice. The room tilted slightly. Emma set her coffee down before she dropped it. Why didn't you tell me? Because until last night, you were safer not knowing, Luca said. The moment you became publicly connected to me, the game changed. Now they know you're under protection, which means they have to escalate or walk away. And which do you think they'll do? Luca's smile was cold. They didn't kill your father because they walk away from problems. Emma looked around the kitchen, at the armed men drinking coffee, at Maria arranging pastries on a plate like this was a normal Thursday morning, at Luca standing there in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking like he ran board meetings instead of whatever the hell he actually ran. I should call my mother, Emma said. Already taken care of, Luca replied. I had someone deliver a message this morning. She knows you're safe. She knows not to talk to anyone about last night. You can't just control my entire life. Yes, I can. Luca's voice didn't rise, but something in it made Emma's spine straighten. Your life is controlled by me now, or it ends. Those are the only two options available. The sooner you accept that, the easier this gets. The tactical guys suddenly found their coffee very interesting. Maria busied herself with the pastries. Emma stood up. I didn't agree to this. You got in the car, Luca said. That was agreement enough. You said I'd be dead before sunrise if I didn't, and I was right. Luca moved closer, not touching her, but closing the distance until Emma could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably cost more than her monthly rent. You think I'm the monster here? Fine. Think that. But the people who killed your father will do worse than anything I've ever done, and they'll do it slowly, and when they're finished, they'll dump what's left of you in the Hudson, and nobody will ever find the body. Emma's hands clenched into fists. You don't get to scare me into compliance. I'm not trying to scare you, Luca said quietly. I'm trying to keep you alive long enough to figure out why your father died. After that, you can hate me all you want. Silence pressed down on the kitchen. One of the tactical guys cleared his throat and excused himself. Maria followed him out, taking the pastries with her. Emma and Luca stood 3 feet apart, staring at each other like two people trying to decide whether to fight or flee. I need to see my mother, Emma said finally. Not a message, not a phone call. I need to see her. Not yet, Luca said. That's not negotiable. Everything is negotiable. Luca's jaw tightened fractionally. But if you want to see her, we do it my way. Controlled environment, limited time, armed security. She'll think I've lost my mind. She'll think you married someone dangerous, Luca corrected, which you apparently did according to 200 witnesses last night, so we might as well make it convincing. Emma's laugh came out sharp and bitter. Right, because we're so convincing. We will be, Luca said. By the time this is over, everyone in this city will believe you're mine. The way he said mine again made something low in Emma's stomach twist. Not fear exactly, something more complicated. Why? Emma asked. Why does everyone have to believe it? Because the people who want you dead won't touch you if they think you're my wife, Luca said. My reputation is the only thing standing between you and a bullet. So we're going to sell this, publicly, convincingly, until it becomes dangerous to hurt you. And then what? Luca's expression flickered, just for a second, into something that might have been regret. Then we figure out what comes next. He turned away before Emma could respond, grabbing his phone and jacket from the counter. Get dressed. Something simple. We're going to a bank, not a fashion show. Emma wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to wake up from this nightmare where her father had been murdered, and she'd been claimed by a man who spoke about violence like other people talked about grocery shopping. Instead, she went back to the guest room and found clothes laid out on the bed. Dark jeans, a silk blouse, leather jacket that probably cost more than her car used to. Everything fit, everything matched. Like someone had studied her measurements and rated a boutique specifically for this moment. She dressed mechanically, trying not to think about what came next. 20 minutes later, she was back in an SUV with tinted windows and armed escorts. Luca sat beside her, scrolling through his phone, completely relaxed. Like kidnapping women and dragging them to banks was just Thursday morning routine. Tell me about Preston Vale, he said without looking up. Emma stiffened. What about him? How much does he know about your father's work? Nothing, Emma said. Preston didn't care about my father's work. He barely cared about my father. But you were engaged, Luca pressed. You must have talked about your families. Your father must have met him, approved of him. Emma stared out the window at passing traffic. My father tolerated Preston because I asked him to, but he never liked him, said Preston cared more about status than substance. Smart man, your father. He was. Emma's throat tightened, which is why I don't understand how he got mixed up in money laundering and organized crime and… He didn't get mixed up in it, Luca interrupted. He stumbled into it, found something he wasn't supposed to find. And instead of walking away like a smart person would, he tried to fix it. Because that's what he did, Emma said. He fixed things. He helped people. He got himself killed, Luca said flatly. and almost got you killed too. So maybe he wasn't as smart as you think. Emma's hand moved before her brain caught up. The slap cracked across Luca's face hard enough to turn his head. The SUV interior went silent. Luca's jaw muscle ticked. He turned slowly back toward Emma, and his eyes had gone absolutely cold. "Don't ever do that again," he said quietly. "Don't talk about my father like that," Emma shot back. Her hand stung, but she didn't regret it. "You didn't know him. You don't get to judge him." "I knew him well enough," Luca said. "I knew him back when he was still Antonio Calloway from Brooklyn, before he changed his name and moved to Manhattan, and pretended he wasn't from the same streets I grew up on." Emma froze. "What?" "Your father's real name was Antonio," Luca said. "Antonio Calla. He Americanized it when he got his degree, got his job, got his beautiful house, and his beautiful family, left the old neighborhood behind, and never looked back." The SUV swam in Emma's vision. "You're lying." "I'm not." Luca's voice stayed level, but something painful flickered across his face. "We were friends, Emma. Real friends. Before he decided people like me weren't good enough for his new life." Emma shook her head. "My father never... He would have told me." "He told you what he wanted you to believe," Luca said, "just like he kept secrets about his work, his debts, and whatever he found that got him killed. Your father was good at secrets." The SUV pulled up outside a sleek glass building in Midtown. Emma recognized it, the bank where her father had kept his accounts, where she'd spent hours 6 months ago trying to settle his estate and failing to understand why nothing added up. Luca opened his door. "Come on." Emma didn't move. "I don't believe you." "You don't have to," Luca said. "But you will eventually. That's how truth works." He climbed out, and after a long moment, Emma followed. The bank lobby was marble and chrome, designed to make people feel small and unimportant. A manager appeared immediately when Luca entered, some instinct telling her this was not a customer you kept waiting. "Mr. DeSantis," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How can we help you today?" "Safety deposit box access," Luca said. He handed her a key Emma had never seen before. "Box 347, registered to Antonio Calla." The manager's smile flickered. "I'll need to verify." Luca handed her a document. Emma caught a glimpse of legal letterhead, dense paragraphs, signatures. The manager scanned it, and her expression went carefully neutral. "Of course," she said. "Right this way." They followed her through security doors and down a corridor lined with more doors. The manager used her key in conjunction with Luca's, and a small room opened up. Bare table, 2 chairs, walls designed to make you feel like you were being watched. "Take your time," the manager said, and disappeared. Luca pulled out the steel box and set it on the table. Emma stared at it. "You already looked through this," Luca said. "What did you find?" "Nothing useful," Emma said. "His passport, some old photographs, his wedding ring from my mother, papers from when he bought the house." "Show me." Emma opened the box. The contents were exactly as she remembered. Worn passport, stack of photos held together with a rubber band, simple gold ring, manila envelope with property documents. Luca went through everything methodically. He studied each photograph like it might hide a secret code, held the ring up to the light, examined the passport page by page. "Nothing," he muttered, "unless he hid it somewhere else." "I told you," Emma said. "There's nothing here." Luca's eyes narrowed. He picked up the manila envelope and dumped out the property documents. Then he felt along the inside of the envelope, running his fingers along the seams. Something shifted. He grabbed the envelope and turned it inside out. Along the bottom seam, barely visible, was a small tear in the lining. Luca worked his fingers into the tear and pulled. A thin plastic card fell onto the table. Not a credit card. Not an ID. A key card. The kind that opened hotel rooms or office buildings. No markings. No logos. Just a blank white rectangle with a magnetic strip. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. "What is that?" "Good question." Luca pocketed the card and started repacking the box. "Let's find out." "Wait," Emma said. "Shouldn't we, I don't know, turn it over to the police or—" "The police can't help you," Luca said. "The police are probably compromised. Anyone your father was investigating probably has cops on payroll." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Luca closed the safety deposit box and returned it to its slot. That's how this world works, Emma. Money buys loyalty, and your father was investigating people with enough money to buy entire precincts. They walked back through the bank in silence. The manager smiled her fake smile and wished them a pleasant day. The SUV waited at the curb with its engine running and its windows tinted dark. Emma climbed in, and this time Luca gave the driver an address she didn't recognize. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere that keycard might work," Luca said. He was already on his phone, speaking in rapid Italian to someone who answered on the first ring. Emma caught fragments: hotel, storage, Chelsea, before he switched to English. "Send Marco to the Chelsea location. Full sweep. I want to know what's there before we walk in." He ended the call and looked at Emma. "Your father kept an office in Chelsea. Small commercial building, mostly freelancers and startups. Rented the space under a different name about 8 months before he died." Emma's head spun. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been investigating your father's life since he came to me," Luca said. "The question isn't what I know. It's what he was hiding that got him killed." The SUV moved through traffic, and Emma watched the city change outside the windows. Manhattan's gleaming towers gave way to Chelsea's converted warehouses and art galleries. They pulled up outside a building that looked like it had been a factory once. Red brick, industrial windows, the kind of place designers turned into loft spaces for people who wanted to feel artistic without the starving part. Luca's phone buzzed. He read the message and nodded to the driver. They went inside. The lobby had exposed brick and a freight elevator that groaned when it moved. Luca hit the button for the 3rd floor. Emma's palms were sweating. "What if it's nothing?" she asked. "What if this is just another dead end?" "Then we keep looking," Luca said. "But your father didn't hide a keycard in a safety deposit box for nothing." The elevator lurched to a stop. The doors opened onto a narrow hallway with numbered doors. Small offices, most of them dark, a few showing light beneath the door frames. Luca walked to the last door on the left, 307, and pulled out the keycard. It clicked. The door swung open. Inside was a small office that looked like someone had left in a hurry. Desk covered in papers, computer monitor dark, whiteboard on the wall filled with names and numbers connected by lines that looked like a conspiracy theorist's nightmare. Emma stepped inside and her breath caught, because taped to the whiteboard, circled in red marker, was Preston Vale's name. "Oh, God," she whispered. Luca moved past her, scanning the room with professional efficiency. He photographed the whiteboard with his phone, started going through the papers on the desk, powered on the computer. "Password protected," he muttered. He looked at Emma. "Any idea what your father might have used?" Emma's brain felt like static. She stared at Preston's name on that whiteboard, connected to a dozen other names she didn't recognize, and 3 she did. Prominent businessmen, the kind who appeared in Forbes and gave interviews about market strategy. "Emma," Luca said sharply. "Password. Think." "I don't," Emma's voice cracked. "Try my birthday. October 14th, 1997. Try. Luca tried several combinations. The computer beeped angrily each time. Shit. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Spoke in Italian again, faster this time. Ended the call and looked at Emma. "I'm having someone who can crack this meet us back at the penthouse. We'll take the whole computer." "Preston was involved," Emma said. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "He knew. The whole time we were engaged, he knew what my father was investigating, and he—" "We don't know what he knew," Luca interrupted. "All we know is his name is on this board. Could mean he's guilty. Could mean he's just connected to someone who is." "He knew," Emma repeated. She felt something cold and sharp settling into her chest. "That's why he left. Not because of the debt. Not because my father died. Because he knew my father was investigating his family's business, and he couldn't risk being associated with me anymore." Luca didn't argue. He started unplugging the computer, wrapping cables with practiced efficiency. Emma walked closer to the whiteboard. More names, more connections. At the center of the web, written in capital letters, Moretti. "Who's Moretti?" she asked. Luca went still. "Where did you see that name?" Emma pointed. Luca's expression went carefully blank. "Salvatore Moretti, crime boss. Old school. Runs most of the money laundering on the East Coast through legitimate businesses. Restaurants, construction, real estate development. And my father was investigating him. Looks like it. Emma's laugh came out broken. He was a financial analyst. He did tax consulting for hedge funds. He wasn't supposed to be investigating crime bosses. Your father had a habit of being where he wasn't supposed to be, Luca said. He finished disconnecting the computer and tucked it under his arm. We need to leave. Now. Why? Because if your father was investigating Salvatore Moretti and Moretti had him killed, then Moretti knows about this office, which means... Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Luca's hand went to his waistband, and Emma saw the gun for the first time. Matte black, compact, the kind of thing that looked more real than anything she'd ever seen in movies. Get behind me, Luca said quietly. Emma's feet moved automatically. She pressed against the wall behind Luca while he positioned himself beside the door, gun held low and ready. The footsteps stopped outside 307. The door handle turned slowly. Luca's finger moved to the trigger. The door swung open and a man stepped inside. Tall, dark suit, completely calm expression that said he'd been expecting to find someone here. Mr. DeSantis, the man said. His voice was smooth, educated, with a trace of an accent Emma couldn't place. And Mrs. DeSantis, I presume. What a pleasant surprise. Luca didn't lower the gun. Who are you? Marcus Webb. The man smiled. I work for Salvatore Moretti. He'd very much like to meet you both. Emma's blood turned to ice. We're not interested, Luca said. I'm afraid that wasn't a request. Marcus Webb gestured behind him, and two more men appeared in the doorway, both armed, both watching Luca with the kind of focus that said they knew exactly how dangerous he was. Mr. Moretti has questions about Antonio Calla's research, questions he believes Mrs. DeSantis might be able to answer. She doesn't know anything, Luca said. Perhaps, Marcus said, but Mr. Moretti would like to verify that personally. So you'll both come with us, voluntarily, if possible. But you will come. Luca's gun stayed level. Emma could see his mind working, calculating odds and exits and how many bullets he had versus how many men were in the hallway. If we refuse? Luca asked. Marcus's smile widened. Then this gets unpleasant, and Mr. Moretti specifically requested we avoid unpleasantness. He's hosting a dinner party this Friday evening and would be honored if you both attended as his guests. A dinner party, Luca repeated flatly. Yes. Formal affair. Very civilized. Mr. Moretti believes most conflicts can be resolved over good food and better wine. Marcus's eyes flicked to Emma. He's particularly interested in meeting the woman who married Luca DeSantis without anyone knowing. That's quite an accomplishment. Emma's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to stop the tremor. Luca lowered his gun fractionally. Friday. 7 o'clock, Marcus confirmed. His estate in Greenwich. Invitations will be delivered tomorrow along with appropriate attire. He glanced at Emma again. Mr. Moretti has excellent taste. I'm sure you'll find the dress suitable. And if we don't show up? Luca asked. Marcus's smile disappeared. Then Mr. Moretti will take it personally. And when Mr. Moretti takes things personally, people tend to disappear. I'm sure you understand. The implied threat hung in the air like smoke. Luca holstered his gun. We'll be there. Excellent. Marcus stepped aside, gesturing for them to exit. Mr. Moretti will be pleased. Oh, and Mr. DeSantis? Leave the computer. Consider it a gesture of good faith. Luca's jaw tightened. For a second, Emma thought he might shoot Marcus Webb right there in that small office. Then he set the computer down on the desk and took Emma's arm. Let's go, he said quietly. They walked past Marcus and his armed escorts, down the hallway, into the freight elevator that suddenly felt like a coffin. The doors closed and Emma finally let herself breathe. What just happened? She whispered. We just got invited to dinner with the man who killed your father, Luca said. His voice was empty, flat, the way people sound when they're barely holding themselves together. And if we don't go, he'll kill us both. The elevator descended. Emma watched the floor numbers tick down and felt like she was falling much faster than gravity should allow. What do we do? She asked. Luca looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, Emma saw something that might have been fear in his eyes. We go to dinner, he said. We smile, we lie, and we pray to whatever's listening that Salvatore Moretti believes us when we tell him we don't have what he wants. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. Outside, the SUV waited. Emma climbed inside on legs that felt like water, and the door closed behind them with that same heavy thunk that sounded like a tomb sealing shut. They drove back toward the penthouse in silence, and Emma couldn't stop thinking about Preston's name on that whiteboard. Couldn't stop thinking about her father, alone in that office, connecting names and numbers and realizing he was investigating something powerful enough to kill him. Couldn't stop thinking that she was now sitting in the middle of the same web that had destroyed him. And the spider was inviting her to dinner. The penthouse felt like a cage. Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows watching Manhattan spread out below, millions of lights hiding millions of secrets, while Luca paced behind her like a caged animal. He'd been on the phone for 2 hours straight, speaking in rapid Italian and English, his voice getting progressively sharper as whatever information he was receiving got worse. She heard him end another call with a curse that needed no translation. "Tell me the truth," Emma said, without turning around. "What are our actual chances of surviving Friday night?" The pacing stopped. "Honestly, 50-50. Emma laughed, but it came out broken. "Those are terrible odds." "Could be worse." Luca moved closer and she saw his reflection in the window, exhausted, dangerous, the kind of tired that came from carrying too much weight for too long. "Moretti wouldn't invite us if he planned to kill us immediately. He wants something first. The evidence my father collected." "Yes." "Which we don't have." "Which we don't have," Luca confirmed. "But he doesn't know that. And as long as he thinks we might have it, we stay alive." Emma turned to face him. "So we bluff. We walk into the home of the man who murdered my father, and we lie to his face, and we hope he believes us. That's the plan. That's a terrible plan. It's the only plan we've got." Luca ran a hand through his hair, and Emma noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself like he was preparing for a fight that might come from any direction. "Unless you have a better idea." Emma didn't. She wrapped her arms around herself and tried not to think about all the ways Friday night could end badly. "Preston knew," she said quietly. "His name was on that board. Which means he knew what my father was investigating. Which means when he left me, it wasn't because of debt or grief or any of the bullshit reasons I told myself. It was because staying with me made him complicit." "Probably," Luca said. "I want to talk to him." "No." "That wasn't a request." Emma's voice hardened. "If Preston was involved in whatever got my father killed, I deserve answers. What you deserve and what's safe are two different things." Luca moved closer, invading her space in that way he had, that made her feel simultaneously protected and trapped. "Preston Vale is a coward. Cowards get unpredictable when they're cornered. If you confront him now, he'll panic. If he panics, he'll run to whoever he's protecting. And if he does that, they'll know we're asking questions we shouldn't be asking." "I don't care." "Yes, you do." Luca's eyes bored into hers. "Because if they know we're digging, they'll move the dinner up. Or skip the dinner entirely and just send someone to put bullets in our heads while we sleep. So you're going to wait. You're going to be patient. And after Friday, if we're both still breathing, you can have your confrontation." Emma wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to do literally anything that would make her feel less powerless. Instead, she nodded. Luca's expression softened fractionally. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we prepare for the performance of your life." Emma walked back to the guest room and lay on top of the covers, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep felt impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's face, saw Preston's name circled in red marker, saw Marcus Webb's smile that promised violence wrapped in civilized language. Hours passed. The city dimmed. Emma's exhaustion finally dragged her under into nightmares where she drowned in dark water while voices above the surface discussed her death in calm, professional tones. She woke to someone shaking her shoulder. Emma jerked upright, heart hammering. Luca stood beside the bed, already dressed in dark clothes, his expression grim. "What's wrong?" Emma asked. "Your mother's at the front desk," Luca said, "demanding to see you. Security called up. She's refusing to leave." Emma was on her feet instantly. "Let her up." "Emma." "Let her up," Emma repeated. "Now, or I walk out that door and go down myself." Luca studied her face for 3 long seconds. Then he pulled out his phone and made the call. 5 minutes later, Emma's mother stepped out of the private elevator looking like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged. She wore the same clothes she'd been wearing at Victoria's engagement party. "Mom?" Emma breathed. Her mother crossed the penthouse in 4 strides and slapped Emma hard enough to make her head snap sideways. The crack echoed through the silent room. "How could you?" Her mother's voice shook with fury and fear and something that sounded like grief. "How could you do this to yourself? To us? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Emma's cheek burned. She pressed her palm against it, feeling tears prick her eyes. "Mrs. Calloway," Luca started. "Don't." Emma's mother whirled on him with such venom that even Luca took a step back. "Don't you dare speak to me. I know who you are. I know what you do. And I know that whatever hold you have over my daughter, it ends now." "It doesn't work like that," Luca said quietly. "Then I'll make it work." Emma's mother turned back to her daughter. "Pack your things. We're leaving, right now." "I can't," Emma whispered. "Yes, you can. Whatever he's told you, whatever threats he's made—" "It's not him," Emma interrupted. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "It's the people who killed Dad." The color drained from her mother's face. "What?" "Dad was murdered," Emma said. The words felt like broken glass in her throat. "His heart attack wasn't a heart attack. He was investigating money laundering for crime syndicates, and they killed him to keep him quiet. And now they think I know where his evidence is." Her mother swayed. Luca moved forward instinctively, but she held up a hand to stop him. "That's insane," she whispered. "Your father was a financial analyst. He worked for legitimate companies. He found something he wasn't supposed to find," Emma said, "and he tried to protect me by turning to the only person powerful enough to keep me alive." She gestured at Luca. "This isn't about control or threats. This is about survival." Her mother stared at her daughter like she was looking at a stranger. "You can't believe this." "I saw the evidence," Emma said. "Dad kept a secret office. He had whiteboards full of names and connections. He was building a case against people who—" her voice cracked. "Who kill people like it's business." Silence pressed down on the penthouse. Emma's mother looked between her daughter and Luca, and something in her expression began to crumble. "He told me he was working late," she said. Her voice had gone hollow. "All those nights, all those weekends, I thought maybe he was having an affair." Emma's chest tightened. "He was trying to protect us." "He got himself killed," her mother said, "and now he's going to get you killed too." "Not if I can help it," Luca interjected. He spoke gently, but there was steel underneath. "Your husband came to me because he knew I could keep Emma safe. I gave him my word. I intend to keep it." "Your word?" Emma's mother laughed bitterly. "The word of a criminal. That's what's supposed to keep my daughter alive?" "Yes," Luca said simply. "Because in this world, my word is the only currency that matters." Emma's mother looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned back to Emma, and tears were streaming down her face. "I already lost your father," she whispered. "I can't lose you too." Emma closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around her mother. They stood like that, holding each other in the middle of a stranger's penthouse, while Manhattan glittered outside and armed men stood guard in the hallway. "You won't lose me," Emma said against her mother's hair. "I promise." It was a promise she had no idea if she could keep. Her mother pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What do you need me to do?" "Stay away," Emma said. "Don't talk to anyone about this. Don't answer questions. If anyone contacts you asking about Dad's work or about me, you tell Luca's people immediately." "I hate this," her mother said. "I know. I hate him." She looked at Luca with naked hostility. "If anything happens to her, then you can kill me yourself," Luca said. "Fair?" Emma's mother didn't smile. She kissed Emma's forehead, held her face between her hands for 5 long seconds, and walked back to the elevator without another word. The doors closed. Emma stood in the middle of the penthouse, feeling like she'd just lost something she couldn't name. "She's right to hate me," Luca said quietly. Emma turned. "What?" "I'm dragging you into a war you didn't choose," Luca said. "Your father asked me to protect you. Instead, I'm taking you to dinner with the man who murdered him. Your mother has every right to hate me." "She doesn't understand," Emma said. "She understands better than you think." Luca moved toward his office. "Get dressed. We have a fitting in 2 hours. A fitting for what? The dress Moretti's sending over, Luca said. And before you argue, yes, you have to wear it. Yes, it's probably bugged or tracked or God knows what else. And yes, we're going to let his people think we're cooperating while we figure out how to survive Friday night. The next 48 hours blurred together in a haze of preparation that felt like preparing for war. Luca's people, and Emma was beginning to understand he had a lot of people, ran security sweeps on the penthouse, tested every phone line, installed additional cameras, brought in a woman named Sophia who spent 6 hours teaching Emma how to walk, talk, and breathe like someone who belonged at a crime boss's dinner table. "Chin up," Sophia said for the 100th time. She was in her 30s, beautiful in a way that looked expensive, and spoke with an accent that suggested European finishing schools. "You're Luca DeSantis's wife. You don't defer to anyone except him. Eye contact, confidence, like you've always belonged in rooms where people discuss murder over dessert wine." Emma tried. Failed. Tried again. "Better," Sophia said. "Now smile." "I don't feel like smiling." "You think any of us feel like smiling?" Sophia's expression was sympathetic but uncompromising. "This is performance. You smile because not smiling means weakness. Weakness means death. So smile, Emma." Emma smiled. "Good," Sophia said. "Now pretend you love him." Emma looked at Luca, who stood across the room on his own phone, coordinating something that required a lot of Italian and what sounded like logistical planning for moving weapons. "Pretend you love him," Sophia repeated, "like he's the only person in any room that matters. Like you'd burn down the world if someone threatened him. Like you're his and he's yours, and anyone who gets between you is already dead." Emma tried to imagine that, tried to channel whatever emotion would sell that kind of devotion. Sophia laughed quietly. "You're thinking too hard. Just look at him like you want him. The rest follows." Emma felt heat creep up her neck. "I don't—" "You do," Sophia interrupted. "Or you will. Spend enough time pretending to love someone, and your brain stops knowing the difference." She touched Emma's shoulder gently. "Fair warning, this life does that. Blurs lines. Makes you forget what's real and what's survival. So decide now which one you want this to be." Emma didn't know how to answer that. Friday arrived too quickly. The dress arrived at noon, delivered by 2 men in suits who looked more like bodyguards than couriers. Emma opened the garment bag and found something that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Deep emerald green silk that would hug every curve, with a neckline that was elegant but showed enough skin to be dangerous, shoes that matched, jewelry that looked real, because it probably was. A note card tucked into the bag read, "Looking forward to meeting you. SM." Emma's hands shook as she set it down. "Breathe," Luca said from the doorway. He wore a tuxedo that made him look like he belonged on magazine covers. Sharp, dangerous, the kind of beautiful that came with warning labels. "You can do this." "Can I?" Emma's voice cracked. "Because I feel like I'm about to walk into my own execution." "Then we die together," Luca said. He moved closer, and Emma realized this was the closest they'd been since that kiss at the country club. "But I don't plan on dying tonight, and neither should you." Emma looked up at him. "What if he knows we're lying? Then we improvise." Luca's hand came up, cupping her face the way he had at the party. The gesture felt practiced, but somehow genuine at the same time. "Trust me tonight, Emma. Trust that I will get you out of that house alive, even if it costs me everything." "Why?" Emma whispered. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Luca's expression flickered, something painful crossing his face before he locked it down. "Because your father saved my life once, long time ago, when we were still friends, and I owe him a debt I can never repay. So keeping you alive is the closest I'll get to making things right." He dropped his hand and stepped back. "Get ready. We leave in 3 hours." Emma showered, did her makeup, put on the dress that fit like it had been designed specifically for her body, which it probably had. Looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked expensive, dangerous, like someone who belonged in Luca DeSantis's world. At 6:30, they left the penthouse surrounded by armed security. 3 SUVs this time, one ahead, one behind, one carrying Emma and Luca in the middle, like some kind of presidential motorcade. The drive to Greenwich took an hour. Emma watched the city give way to suburbs. Suburbs give way to estates. Estates give way to the kind of properties that had names instead of addresses. They turned through iron gates that probably cost more than Emma's childhood home. The driveway curved through manicured grounds lit by subtle landscaping lights. The mansion rose ahead, 3 stories of old-world architecture, columns and balconies, and windows glowing with warm light that promised civility and hid God knew what underneath. The SUV stopped at the front entrance. Luca took Emma's hand. "Remember, you're my wife, you love me, and you're exactly as dangerous as I am." Emma squeezed his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his fingers. "I'm terrified." "Good," Luca said. "Means you're paying attention." They stepped out of the SUV together. The front doors opened and Marcus Webb appeared. Same smooth smile, same dangerous calm. "Mr. and Mrs. DeSantis, welcome. Mr. Moretti is delighted you could join us." They followed Marcus into a foyer that looked like a museum. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, original artwork on the walls. Everything carefully curated to demonstrate wealth and taste and power. More guests were already here. Emma counted 15 people in evening wear, standing in clusters with champagne glasses, speaking in quiet tones that suggested business disguised as pleasure. She recognized 2 faces from the financial news. One from a political campaign last year. Everyone looked up when Luca entered. Conversations didn't stop, but they paused. Men's eyes tracked their progress across the foyer. Women assessed Emma with expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled hostility. Marcus led them through to a formal living room, and there, sitting in a leather chair like a king on his throne, was Salvatore Moretti. He was older than Emma expected, 70s maybe, with silver hair slicked back and a face that had probably been handsome 50 years ago. He wore a tuxedo that looked custom-made and a smile that never reached his eyes. "Luca," he said, rising with the careful movements of someone whose body had started betraying him. "It's been too long." "Salvatore," Luca replied. His voice stayed neutral, giving nothing away. Moretti's gaze shifted to Emma, and she felt herself being evaluated like a piece of art he was considering purchasing. "And this must be your bride. I must say, you kept this quiet. I didn't even know you were seeing anyone." "I value my privacy," Luca said. Clearly, Moretti moved closer, and Emma forced herself not to step back. "Emma Calloway, or should I say, Emma DeSantis now?" "Either is fine," Emma said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Your father was Antonio Calla," Moretti said. It wasn't a question. Before he Americanized it, of course. "I knew him years ago, before he decided our world wasn't good enough for him." Emma's stomach clenched. "I didn't know that." "No, I imagine you wouldn't." Moretti's smile widened. "Your father was good at keeping secrets, right up until his heart gave out. Tragic, really. He was so young." The implication hung in the air like poison gas. "Yes," Emma said carefully. "It was very sudden." "These things usually are." Moretti gestured toward the dining room. "Come. Dinner is ready. We have so much to discuss." The dining room was formal, elegant, with a table that could seat 20, but tonight held only 12. Place cards indicated seating, Emma between Luca and a man introduced as Vincent Catalano, who apparently owned half the construction contracts in the tri-state area. Emma recognized 3 other names from her father's whiteboard. They were all here. Everyone her father had been investigating, sitting around this table like civilized people about to eat expensive food and drink expensive wine. Luca's hand found Emma's under the table, his fingers laced with hers, and she held on like a drowning person holds on to driftwood. The first course arrived, some kind of seafood appetizer Emma couldn't identify. Conversation flowed around her in carefully neutral topics. Real estate markets, travel plans, someone's daughter's wedding in the Hamptons. Nobody mentioned crime, nobody mentioned money laundering, nobody mentioned Antonio Calla's investigation or his convenient heart attack. But everyone knew. Emma could feel it in the weight of their glances. The careful way they avoided certain subjects, the undercurrent of threat beneath every polite smile. Halfway through the second course, Moretti cleared his throat. "Emma," he said, and the entire table fell silent. "I'm curious. Your father was a meticulous man, very organized, very thorough. I imagine he left behind quite a bit of paperwork when he died." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. "Some. Mostly financial documents for settling his estate." "Nothing else?" Moretti pressed. No research? No files related to his work? I don't think so, Emma said. She let her voice shake slightly, like she was nervous but trying to hide it. I went through everything. It was mostly just debt and bills and paperwork from his medical treatment. Moretti studied her. That must have been difficult, going through a deceased parent's belongings. It was. And you found nothing unusual? Nothing that seemed out of place? Emma shook her head. Just a lot of numbers I didn't understand. My father's work was always confusing to me. She felt Luca's grip tighten on her hand, felt the tension radiating off him like heat. Moretti leaned back in his chair. I ask because there have been rumors. Suggestions that your father was collecting information about certain business operations. Information that, in the wrong hands, could cause significant problems for a lot of people. I don't know anything about that, Emma said. No? Moretti's eyes narrowed fractionally. Then why did you marry Luca DeSantis? Bit of a coincidence, don't you think? Your father dies under mysterious circumstances, and a few months later you're married to one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast. We fell in love, Emma said. She looked at Luca, trying to channel everything Sophia had taught her. It wasn't planned, it just happened. Love, Moretti repeated. He smiled, but it was the smile of a shark scenting blood. How romantic. Luca spoke for the first time since they'd sat down. Emma had nothing to do with her father's work. She didn't even know about his investigation until I told her. She's innocent in all of this. Innocent? Moretti savored the word. That's a dangerous thing to be in our world, Luca. You know that better than anyone. Which is why she's under my protection, Luca said. His voice dropped into something cold and final. Anyone who touches her answers to me. The temperature in the dining room plummeted. Several people set down their forks. Marcus Webb shifted position near the doorway, his hand resting casually near his waistband. Moretti stared at Luca for 5 long seconds. Then he laughed, a dry, mirthless sound. Of course, he said. I meant no offense. Simply making conversation. He raised his wine glass. To new marriages and old friendships. Everyone else raised their glasses. Emma lifted hers with a hand that trembled. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. More courses, more wine, more careful conversation that danced around everything important while saying absolutely nothing. Finally, Moretti stood. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll excuse us, I'd like to speak with Mr. and Mrs. DeSantis privately. Marcus, please see that our other guests are comfortable. Emma's stomach dropped. She looked at Luca, whose expression had gone carefully blank. They followed Moretti through the mansion to a study that was all dark wood and leather and cigar smoke. Moretti closed the door behind them and moved to the desk. When he turned back, he was holding a gun. Emma froze. Luca's body went rigid beside her. Relax, Moretti said. He set the gun on the desk but kept his hand near it. I'm not going to shoot you yet, but I need you both to understand something. I'm listening, Luca said. Your father, Moretti said to Emma, was a very smart man. Too smart for his own good. He found something, evidence of financial irregularities in several legitimate businesses, evidence that could destroy a lot of very powerful people if it ever saw the light of day. Emma said nothing. Her eyes were locked on the gun. He came to me, Moretti continued, 6 months before he died. Said he wanted to make a deal. He'd bury the evidence in exchange for protection for his family, specifically for his daughter. Emma's breath caught. That's not true. Isn't it? Moretti smiled. He was very specific, said his daughter was innocent, said she didn't deserve to suffer for his mistakes, and I agreed to protect you. In exchange, he promised to tell me where he'd hidden all the evidence he'd collected. He wouldn't work with you, Emma said. He was trying to expose you. He was trying to survive, Moretti corrected. And he was willing to bargain with the devil to keep you safe. But then something went wrong. He got cold feet, maybe. Or he realized I couldn't be trusted. Either way, he died before he told me where the evidence was hidden. The room spun. Emma grabbed the edge of the desk to stay upright. You're lying, she whispered. I'm not. Moretti's voice stayed gentle, almost sympathetic. Your father loved you, Emma, so much that he was willing to betray everything he believed in to protect you. And now I need you to tell me where he hid what belongs to me. I don't know, Emma said. I've told you, I don't know where it is. Moretti sighed. He picked up the gun, Didn't point it at anyone, just held it casually, like it was part of the furniture. Luca, he said, you understand what happens next if I don't get what I want. War, Luca said flatly. War, Moretti agreed, which neither of us wants, so I'm going to make you both a very simple offer. You have 1 week to find Antonio Cala's evidence and bring it to me. All of it. Every file, every document, every recording. You do that, and we all walk away. Emma lives, you live, everyone goes back to their normal lives. And if we don't find it? Luca asked. Moretti smiled. Then I start killing people Emma loves until she remembers where her father hid it. Mother first, then cousins, then old friends, then teachers she liked in high school, then that nice old woman who lived next door when she was growing up. I'll work through every single person she's ever cared about until she either tells me what I need to know or runs out of people to mourn. Emma's vision went white at the edges. She felt Luca's arm around her waist, holding her up. 1 week, Moretti said. Starting now. He opened the study door. Marcus Webb stood outside, waiting. Marcus will see you out, Moretti said. Enjoy the rest of your evening. They walked through the mansion in silence, past the remaining dinner guests, past the marble foyer, past the security who watched them leave with expressions that promised violence if they ever came back without what Moretti wanted. The SUV door closed behind them, and Emma finally let herself shake. He's going to kill everyone I love, she said. Her voice came out broken, barely audible. He's going to kill my mother and... He's not, Luca said, but he sounded less certain than before. You heard him. I heard him, Luca interrupted. And he means every word. Which means we have 1 week to find something your father hid so well that nobody's found it in 6 months. Emma pressed her hands against her face. We don't even know where to start. Yes, we do, Luca said quietly. We start with the person your father trusted most. Emma looked up. My mother? No. Luca's expression was grim. We start with Preston Vale. The name hit Emma like cold water. What? Think about it, Luca said. Your father was investigating Preston's family business. He had Preston's name circled on that whiteboard, which means either Preston was guilty or your father thought Preston could help prove someone else was. Preston hated my father by the end, Emma said. Why would my father trust him with anything? Because sometimes, Luca said, the best place to hide evidence of a crime is with someone who has no choice but to keep it secret. The SUV glided through the dark Connecticut countryside, carrying them back toward Manhattan. Emma stared out the window at nothing, her mind racing. Her father had tried to make a deal with Moretti, had been willing to bury everything to protect her, had died before he could follow through. And now Emma had 1 week to find evidence she didn't understand, hidden by a man she thought she knew but apparently never did, or watch everyone she loved die one by one. I need to talk to Preston, she said finally. Luca nodded. Tomorrow. First thing. But Emma, what? When we confront him, Luca said quietly. You need to be prepared for the possibility that he's not the person you thought he was. That maybe he never was. Emma laughed bitterly. I stopped believing I knew anyone the moment you kissed me at that party. Fair enough. They drove in silence for a while. Then Emma spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. What if we don't find it? Luca's hand found hers in the darkness. Then we run. We disappear. We leave everyone we know behind and we spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. That's not a life. No, Luca agreed, but it's better than being dead. Emma closed her eyes and tried not to think about her mother, about Victoria, about everyone whose life would end because of evidence her father had hidden to protect her. Tried not to think about the fact that she had 6 days left to save them all, and absolutely no idea where to start. They found Preston at his office building in Midtown at 7 in the morning, early enough that the lobby was still half empty, security guards drinking coffee and reading phones while Manhattan woke up around them. Emma walked through the rotating doors with Luca 3 steps behind her, and she felt like a different person than the woman who'd cowered beside a champagne tower 6 days ago. 6 days since that party. 6 days since Luca had claimed her. 5 days left until Moretti started killing everyone she loved. The math was simple, brutal, final. Preston's firm occupied floors 12 through 15, Emma rode the elevator with her hands clenched into fists, feeling Luca's presence beside her like a loaded gun. He'd wanted to bring armed security. Emma had refused. This confrontation needed to be personal, not tactical. If he runs, Luca said quietly as the elevator climbed, I stop him. If he lies, I know. If he fights back, I handle it. You focus on getting answers. Emma nodded. Her reflection in the polished elevator doors looked pale, dangerous, exhausted. The emerald dress was gone, replaced by dark jeans and a black sweater that made her look like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. The doors opened onto the 12th floor. Reception desk, modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. A young woman with perfect makeup looked up from her computer and smiled professionally. Can I help you? Preston Vale, Emma said. Tell him Emma Calloway is here. The receptionist's smile flickered. Do you have an appointment? No. Then I'm afraid, Tell him Emma Calloway is here, Emma repeated. Her voice dropped into something cold that she barely recognized as her own. Tell him I know about my father, and if he doesn't see me in the next 60 seconds, I walk into his morning meeting and ask him about it in front of his entire team. The receptionist's eyes widened. She picked up the phone, spoke in urgent whispers, listened, then hung up. Mr. Vale's office is down the hall. Last door on the right. Emma walked. Luca followed. Their footsteps were silent on expensive carpet that probably cost more per square foot than most people made per hour. Preston's office door was closed. Emma didn't knock. She pushed it open and walked inside like she owned the place. Preston stood behind his desk, phone in hand, looking like he'd been about to make a call. When he saw Emma, every drop of color drained from his face. Emma, he said. His voice cracked halfway through her name. What are you can't just... Then he saw Luca, and whatever he'd been about to say died in his throat. Close the door, Emma said. Preston's hand trembled as he set down his phone. Emma, listen. Close the door, Emma repeated, or I start screaming questions about Antonio Calla's investigation into your family's money laundering operation, and every single person on this floor hears it. Preston closed the door. Emma moved closer, circling his desk like a shark. Luca positioned himself in front of the door, arms crossed, expression blank. My father had your name on a whiteboard, Emma said. Her voice stayed level, controlled, but underneath was something sharp enough to cut bone. Circled in red marker, connected to Salvatore Moretti and half a dozen other people who are currently under federal investigation for organized crime. So you're going to tell me why? Right now, Preston's Adam's apple bobbed. I don't know what you're talking about. Wrong answer. Emma slammed her hands on his desk hard enough to make him flinch. Try again. Emma, I swear. My father is dead, Emma said. Each word felt like a bullet. Murdered by people who didn't want him exposing their crimes. And you knew. The whole time we were engaged, the whole time you were pretending to love me, you knew what he was investigating. I didn't. You left me, Emma interrupted. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. The moment my father died, you disappeared. Not because of debt, not because of grief, because you couldn't risk being associated with the daughter of a man investigating your family. Preston's shoulders slumped. He sank into his desk chair like his legs had given out. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Silence. Preston stared at his hands, and Emma could see him calculating, weighing risks, measuring consequences, trying to figure out which truth would hurt him least. Talk, Luca said from the doorway. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a sledgehammer. Before I make you talk. Preston's eyes flicked to Luca, then back to Emma. Your father came to me 9 months ago, said he'd found irregularities in my father's investment portfolios. Accounts that didn't match reported earnings, money moving through shell corporations. He asked if I knew anything about it. And did you? Emma asked. No, Preston said quickly. I swear to God, Emma, I had no idea my father was laundering money for the mob. I thought we were legitimate. I thought... His voice broke. I thought we were one of the good ones. Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that the man she'd almost married wasn't complicit in her father's murder, but wanting and knowing were different countries. Keep talking, she said. Your father asked me to help him, Preston continued. Said if I could get him access to certain files, certain transaction records, he could build a case strong enough to bring down the entire operation. He said it was the right thing to do, that my family was on the wrong side of history, and I had a chance to fix it. So you helped him, Emma said. I tried, Preston said. I got him some files. Not many, just enough to confirm his suspicions. But then, he swallowed hard. Then my father found out. The office suddenly felt airless. Emma gripped the edge of Preston's desk. What happened? He confronted me, Preston said. His voice had gone hollow. Said I was betraying the family, said Antonio Calla was going to destroy us all, and I was helping him do it. He gave me an ultimatum, cut ties with your family immediately, or he'd turn me over to Moretti's people. So you left me, Emma whispered. I didn't have a choice, Preston said. If I stayed with you, they'd kill us both. At least if I walked away, you'd survive. Except my father didn't survive, Emma said. They killed him anyway. I didn't know they were going to do that, Preston said desperately. I swear, Emma, I thought if I just stayed away, if I just kept my mouth shut, everyone would be safe. But they weren't, Emma's voice cracked. My father died. And you said nothing. You let me think he'd had a heart attack. You let me mourn him without knowing the truth. I was terrified, Preston said. These people, Emma, you don't understand what they're capable of. Moretti has senators on his payroll, judges, federal agents. If I'd said anything, I'd be dead within hours. You're a coward, Emma said. Preston flinched like she'd hit him. Yes, I am. I've lived with that every day for 6 months. But at least I'm alive. Not for long, Luca said quietly. Preston's head snapped toward him. What? Moretti knows Emma married me, Luca explained. His tone was conversational, almost friendly, which somehow made it more terrifying. Which means he knows we're looking for her father's evidence. Which means anyone who helped Antonio Calla is now a liability. The blood drained from Preston's face again. I didn't tell anyone about. Doesn't matter, Luca interrupted. You're a loose end, and Moretti doesn't leave loose ends. Preston stood up fast enough to knock his chair backward. Then what am I supposed to do? Help us, Emma said. My father hid evidence somewhere. Evidence strong enough to destroy Moretti's entire operation. You helped him collect some of it, so you're going to help us find the rest. I don't know where he hid it, Preston said. After my father found out I was helping, Antonio stopped telling me anything, said it was safer if I didn't know. But you know something, Luca pressed. You were engaged to his daughter. You spent time in his house. You must have seen something. Preston shook his head. I don't think, Emma demanded. Please, Preston. I have 5 days left before Moretti starts killing people. My mother is first on his list, so if you ever actually loved me, even a little bit, help me save her. Preston's breath came faster. He pressed his palms against his desk, staring down at the polished wood like it might offer answers. There was one thing, probably nothing. But your father used to talk about the storage unit he kept in Brooklyn. Said it was where he stored old files from his early career, tax returns and client records and stuff. He needed to keep for legal reasons, but didn't want cluttering up the house. Emma's heart rate spiked. Where in Brooklyn? I don't know exactly, Preston said. Somewhere near where he grew up. Before he moved to Manhattan. He mentioned it once when we were talking about cleaning out old paperwork. I remember because he got weird about it, like protective. Said nobody went to that storage unit except him. Emma looked at Luca. You said my father grew up in Brooklyn with you. Same neighborhood, Luca confirmed. Red Hook. Before it got gentrified. He pulled out his phone. There are maybe 20 storage facilities in that area. We'll hit every single one until we find it. Wait, Preston said. If you're going after Moretti, if you're really going to expose him, I want to help. No, Emma said immediately. Emma, please, Preston said. Let me do something right. Let me make up for You can't make up for leaving me, Emma interrupted. Her voice shook with fury she'd been holding back for 6 months. You can't make up for letting me think my father died of natural causes while you knew the truth. You can't make up for being too much of a coward to stand beside me when I needed you most. Preston's eyes filled with tears. I know. But you can stay alive, Emma continued. You can get on a plane and disappear. You can run so far that Moretti never finds you, and maybe someday, Years from now, you can become someone who doesn't make me sick to look at." Preston stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, Emma. For everything." "So am I," Emma said. She turned toward the door. "Let's go." Luca followed her out. They walked past the receptionist, who was definitely not paid enough to deal with whatever scene she'd just witnessed. Down the elevator, through the lobby, out onto the Manhattan street where the SUV waited at the curb. Emma climbed inside and finally let herself shake. "You did good," Luca said quietly. "I confronted my ex-boyfriend and found out he helped my father die," Emma said. Her voice came out flat, empty. "That doesn't feel good." "He didn't help your father die," Luca corrected. "He just wasn't brave enough to help him live. There's a difference." "Is there?" Luca didn't answer. He gave the driver an address in Red Hook, and the SUV pulled into traffic. They spent the next 6 hours methodically searching every storage facility within a 3-mile radius of where Luca remembered Antonio Calla growing up. Most required ID and keycard access. Luca bypassed security at all of them, sometimes through bribery, sometimes through intimidation, once through what looked like a favor owed by a manager who took one look at Luca's face and handed over master keys without being asked. They found nothing. Facility after facility, row after row of orange doors hiding other people's forgotten possessions. Nothing registered to Antonio Calla or any variation of that name. By the 8th location, Emma felt desperation clawing at her throat. "We're running out of time." "We still have 4 days," Luca said. 4 days before Moretti kills my mother." Emma pressed her palms against her eyes. "What if Preston was wrong? What if there is no storage unit? What if my father hid everything somewhere else and we're wasting us?" "Emma!" Luca grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "Breathe. We're not wasting anything. If the storage unit exists, we'll find it. And if it doesn't, then we move to Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Luca's expression went cold. "We kill Moretti first." Emma stared at him. "That's not a plan. That's murder." "In my world," Luca said quietly, "there's not much difference between the two." The 9th storage facility was different from the others. Older, more run down. The kind of place that predated computerized systems and facial recognition security. Just a chain-link fence, a booth with a board attendant, and rows of units stretching back into industrial Brooklyn. Luca showed the attendant a $100 bill and Antonio Calla's old driver's license, the one from his safety deposit box that still had his birth name on it. The attendant barely looked at it. He took the money, checked a handwritten ledger that looked like it dated back to the 90s, and nodded. "Unit 247. Back row, far corner. Lock's been there since before I started working here, so I got no idea if the key still works." Luca took the unit number and walked. Emma followed. Unit 247 sat in the darkest corner of the facility, surrounded by units that looked abandoned. Graffiti covered nearby doors. Weeds grew through cracked concrete. This was the kind of place people came to forget things, not to store things they valued, which made it perfect. Luca pulled out the key from Antonio's safety deposit box, the one Emma had thought opened nothing important. He slid it into the padlock on Unit 247. It clicked. The lock opened. Luca rolled up the door, and Emma's breath caught. The unit was packed floor to ceiling with file boxes, dozens of them, maybe 100, each one labeled with dates and case numbers in her father's careful handwriting. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. Luca pulled out his phone, dialing fast. "Get a truck to my location, now. Big enough to transport about 100 file boxes, and bring enough people to load it in under 10 minutes. He ended the call and turned to Emma. "This is it. Everything your father collected. Everything that got him killed." Emma stepped into the unit, pulled down one box at random, opened it. Inside were financial documents, transaction records, photographs of men in expensive suits shaking hands outside restaurants, recordings labeled with dates and names, email printouts, bank statements, wire transfer receipts. Every box was the same, years of evidence, meticulously organized, damning. "He really did it," Emma said. Her voice shook. "He built a case strong enough to destroy them all." "Yes," Luca said, "and they murdered him before he could use it." Emma felt tears burn down her face. "He was trying to do the right thing." "He was," Luca agreed quietly, and it killed him. Just like doing the right thing kills most people who try it in our world. A truck arrived 20 minutes later, unmarked white cargo van with 6 men who moved with military efficiency. They loaded the boxes in silence, working fast, checking sightlines and watching for surveillance. Within 12 minutes, the storage unit was empty and the truck was pulling away toward a secure location Luca wouldn't name. Emma and Luca followed in the SUV. "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Now we sort through everything," Luca said. "Figure out exactly what we have. Then we decide how to use it." "We give it to Moretti," Emma said. "That was the deal. 1 week to find the evidence, then we hand it over and everyone walks away." Luca looked at her. "You really think he'll let you walk away? After you've seen everything in those boxes? After you know exactly what he's done and who he's done it with?" Emma's stomach clenched. "He promised." "Salvatore Moretti's promises are worth less than the breath he uses to make them," Luca said. "The moment we give him that evidence, he'll kill us both. It's the only way he stays safe." "Then what do we do?" "We use it," Luca said, "not to buy our freedom, to take his empire apart piece by piece until he has nothing left to threaten us with." "That's war," Emma said. "Yes," Luca agreed. "It is." The secure location turned out to be a warehouse in Queens. Massive space, concrete floors, armed guards at every entrance. The file boxes were arranged in rows across the main floor, like artifacts in a museum dedicated to financial crime. Luca's people, Emma had stopped trying to count how many people Luca actually employed, started cataloging everything. Photographing documents, creating digital backups, building databases of names and dates and transactions. Emma walked between the rows, pulling down random files, seeing her father's handwriting on page after page of evidence. Comments in the margins. Questions circled. Connections drawn between seemingly unrelated events. He'd spent years on this, probably the last 5 years of his life, working in secret, building a case that would have brought down dozens of powerful people if he'd lived long enough to file it. "Here!" someone called from across the warehouse. Emma and Luca moved toward the voice. One of Luca's people, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, held up a file labeled simply Moretti Primary. Luca took it, opened it. His expression went very still. "What is it?" Emma asked. "Everything," Luca said quietly. "Wire transfers, Shell Corporation documents, photographs of meetings with politicians, recordings of conversations where Moretti explicitly discusses ordering hits on witnesses and competitors." He looked up. "This file alone could put him away for life." "Then we give it to the FBI," Emma said. "The FBI is compromised," Luca said. "Your father has notes in here about federal agents on Moretti's payroll. Names, badge numbers, specific examples of cases that got buried." Emma felt the walls closing in. "Then who do we give it to?" "Someone Moretti can't touch," Luca said. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts, made a call. "I need a meeting, tonight. Tell her it's urgent. Tell her Luca DeSantis has evidence on Salvatore Moretti's entire operation, and I'm willing to hand it over in exchange for guaranteed immunity and protection." He listened for a moment. "No, not the FBI. I want the U.S. Attorney's Office. Someone Moretti hasn't bought yet. Someone who actually gives a damn about taking down organized crime." Another pause. 6 hours. "I'll text you the location, and tell her to come alone. No federal agents, no wires, no backup. If I see anyone who looks like law enforcement within a mile of that meeting, the evidence disappears and Moretti wins." He ended the call and looked at Emma. "We're meeting with the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District at midnight. If she's willing to protect us and move fast enough, we can take Moretti down before he realizes what's happening." "And if she's not willing?" Emma asked. Luca's smile was cold. "Then we release everything publicly. Every document, every recording, every photograph. We flood every news outlet and social media platform with so much evidence that even Moretti can't suppress it all. It'll be chaos. Probably destroy a lot of innocent people along with the guilty ones. But it'll end him." Emma thought about that. About her father's careful investigation turned into a weapon of mass destruction. About collateral damage and unintended consequences, and the difference between justice and revenge. "We try the legal route first," she said. "Agreed," Luca said. The next 6 hours moved like a fever dream. Emma tried to rest but couldn't. She walked through the warehouse, reading her father's notes, seeing the scope of what he'd uncovered. money laundering that funded terrorism, political corruption that reached the highest levels of state government, murder-for-hire operations disguised as legitimate business rivalries. Her father had found all of it, documented all of it, and died trying to expose it. At 11:30, Luca touched her shoulder. Time to go. They drove to a location Emma didn't recognize. Abandoned parking garage in Lower Manhattan, the kind of place that existed in the gaps between neighborhoods where nobody looked too closely. One SUV, no backup, just Emma and Luca and a duffel bag containing copies of the most damning evidence from Antonio Calla's investigation. At 11:58, a black sedan pulled into the parking garage. One woman emerged, mid-40s, sharp suit, carrying herself like someone who'd spent years in courtrooms facing down dangerous men and refusing to blink. "Mr. DeSantis," she said, "I'm Sarah Chen, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. I'm told you have something I want to see." "I do," Luca said. "But first, I need guarantees." "What kind of guarantees?" "Witness protection for Emma Calloway," Luca said. "Complete immunity from prosecution for anything related to her father's investigation, and protection for her family, mother, extended relatives, anyone Moretti might target." "That's a lot to ask," Chen said. "I'm offering a lot in return," Luca replied. He lifted the duffel bag. "Everything you need to dismantle Salvatore Moretti's organization. Financial records, witness testimony, proof of federal corruption, enough to put 50 people in prison for the rest of their lives." Chen's eyes narrowed. Why bring this to me? Why not just release it publicly and let chaos sort out the guilty? "Because Emma's father believed in the system," Luca said quietly. "He thought justice actually meant something. I'd like to believe he was right." Chen studied them both for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Show me what you have." Luca opened the duffel bag. The next 30 minutes involved Sarah Chen reviewing documents with an expression that progressed from skeptical to stunned to quietly furious. She photographed certain pages with her phone, asked sharp questions about sources and chain of custody, made notes in a leather folio she pulled from her car. Finally, she looked up. "This is prosecutable. All of it. If the evidence holds up in court, we can take down not just Moretti, but everyone he's connected to." "Then we have a deal?" Emma asked. "We have a deal," Chen confirmed. "I'll draw up immunity agreements for you both. Full witness protection if you want it. And I'll start filing warrants tonight. We'll hit Moretti's properties simultaneously. Homes, offices, warehouses, everything. He won't have time to destroy evidence or warn his people." "When?" Luca asked. 48 hours, Chen said. "I need that much time to coordinate with local police, get warrants approved, and assemble teams I know aren't compromised. Can you stay hidden that long?" "Yes," Luca said. "Good." Chen closed the duffel bag. "Don't go anywhere public. Don't contact anyone outside your immediate circle. And if Moretti reaches out—" "He won't," Luca interrupted. "He thinks we're still looking for the evidence." "Let's hope it stays that way," Chen said. She walked back to her sedan, then paused. "For what it's worth, Antonio Calla did good work. He deserved better than what happened to him." "Yes," Emma said quietly. "He did." Chen drove away, and Emma felt something loosen in her chest. They'd done it, found the evidence, made a deal, set the wheels in motion for Moretti's arrest. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Emma felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground beneath her feet was beginning to crumble. "We need to leave," Luca said. "Now." They climbed into the SUV. The driver pulled out of the parking garage and merged into late-night Manhattan traffic. 3 blocks later, Luca's phone rang. He answered, listened. His expression went from calm to concerned to absolutely cold. "When?" he asked. Pause. "How many?" Another pause. "Get everyone to the secondary location, now. I'll call you back." He ended the call and looked at Emma. "Moretti knows." Emma's heart stopped. "Knows what?" "About the storage unit," Luca said. "Someone tipped him off that we found it. He's mobilizing his people. Probably planning to hit the warehouse where we're storing the evidence." "How is that possible?" Emma asked. "Nobody knew except—" She stopped, stared at Luca. "Preston," they said simultaneously. "Son of a bitch," Luca said. He was already dialing again. "I told you he was a coward. Cowards always run to whoever scares them most. Emma felt betrayed anew. Preston had seemed so afraid, so genuinely remorseful, and the moment they'd left, he'd called Moretti and sold them out. The warehouse? Emma asked. Already evacuated, Luca said. My people are moving everything to a location Moretti doesn't know about. But Emma, if he knows about the storage unit, he knows we have the evidence, which means he's coming for us, Emma finished. Yes. The SUV suddenly swerved hard to the right. Emma grabbed the door handle. What? Tail, the driver said. His voice stayed calm even as he accelerated through a yellow light. 2 cars. Professional grade. Luca drew his gun. How close? 100 yards and closing. Lose them, Luca ordered. The driver nodded and took the next turn fast enough to throw Emma against her seatbelt. Behind them, headlights followed. The SUV accelerated down a street Emma didn't recognize, weaving between slower cars, running red lights, driving like the entire city was a racetrack, and the prize for winning was staying alive. They're still with us, the driver said. Then we stop running, Luca said. He leaned forward. Take us to the warehouse district, the one near the bridge. I want open space and no civilians. The driver changed direction. The SUV barreled toward Brooklyn and Emma's hand shook as she gripped the seat. What are you doing? She asked Luca. Ending this, Luca said. Before they end us. The warehouse district was exactly what it sounded like. Massive industrial buildings, empty lots, streets lined with shipping containers. No pedestrians, no witnesses. Just shadows and concrete and the kind of space where violence could happen without anyone noticing until morning. The SUV skidded to a stop in a loading area. Luca kicked open his door. Stay in the car. Like hell, Emma said. Emma said, I'm not hiding anymore, Emma interrupted. She opened her door and climbed out before Luca could stop her. The 2 cars following them pulled into the loading area 30 seconds later. Doors opened. 6 men emerged, all armed, all moving with the kind of confidence that said they'd done this before. Marcus Webb stepped out of the lead car. Same smooth smile, same dangerous calm. Mr. DeSantis, he said. Mrs. DeSantis. Mr. Moretti would like a word. Tell Moretti he can go to hell, Luca said. Marcus's smile widened. He anticipated you might say that, which is why he asked me to deliver a message. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up. Emma's blood turned to ice. On the screen was a video feed, live footage of her mother's house. The camera showed the living room where Emma had grown up. Her mother sat on the couch, hands bound, mouth covered with tape, eyes wide with terror. 2 men with guns stood on either side of her. You have 30 minutes, Marcus said, to bring the evidence to Mr. Moretti. Every minute you're late, one of your mother's fingers gets removed. At minute 30, we start on toes. At minute 60, we move to more vital areas. You understand? Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All she could see was her mother's terrified face on that screen. You son of a bitch, Luca said. Call me whatever you like, Marcus replied. But the clock is ticking. Tick-tock, Mrs. DeSantis. Tick-tock. He got back in his car. The 6 armed men followed. The vehicles pulled away, leaving Emma and Luca standing in an empty loading area while Manhattan glittered across the bridge and the countdown to her mother's mutilation began. Emma's legs gave out. She sank to her knees on cold concrete, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she let herself break. We can't win, she said. Her voice came out shattered. Whatever we do, he wins. If we give him the evidence, he kills us. If we don't, he tortures my mother and then kills us anyway. Luca knelt beside her. Emma, there's no way out, Emma said. My father tried to expose them and they killed him. We tried to expose them and now they're going to kill everyone I love. This is how it ends. This is... Luca grabbed her face with both hands, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me. Your father failed because he tried to do this alone. We're not alone. We have evidence. We have the U.S. attorney ready to move. We have people loyal to me who would die before they let Moretti win. And we have something your father didn't have. What? Emma whispered. Luca's eyes burned into hers. We have each other. And I swear to you, Emma Calloway, on everything I have left that matters, I will get your mother back alive. I will end Salvatore Moretti. And I will make sure you survive this nightmare, even if it costs me everything. Emma stared at him. At this dangerous man who'd claimed her at a party to protect her, who'd kept his word even when it put him in Moretti's crosshairs, who was looking at her now like she was the only thing in the world worth saving. "How?" she asked. Luca's smile was cold and sharp as a knife. "We give Moretti what he wants, but not before we make sure everyone else sees it too." He pulled out his phone and started making calls. And Emma understood, finally, completely, what her father had known from the beginning. Sometimes the only way to fight monsters was to become one yourself. 27 minutes. That's how long they had before Moretti's men started cutting fingers off Emma's mother. The SUV tore through Brooklyn streets while Luca spoke into his phone in rapid-fire Italian, coordinating something Emma couldn't quite follow but understood was their only chance. She pressed her hands against her thighs to stop them shaking and watched the city blur past, buildings and bridges and millions of people living normal lives while hers hung by a thread that was fraying with every passing second. "Tell me the plan," Emma said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Luca ended his call. "Sarah Chen is mobilizing federal agents now, moving up the timeline. They'll hit Moretti's estate in Greenwich simultaneously with us hitting your mother's location. But we need to keep Moretti's attention focused on us long enough for the raids to happen." "How?" "We walk into his trap," Luca said. "We bring the evidence like he wants. But we also bring every news outlet in New York with cameras pointed at that house when federal agents storm it." Emma's breath caught. "You're going to broadcast his arrest. I'm going to make sure the entire world watches Salvatore Moretti get dragged out of his mansion in handcuffs," Luca said. "By the time his lawyers figure out what's happening, every network will have footage. He won't be able to buy his way out of this one." "And my mother?" Luca's jaw tightened. "I'm sending a team to her house right now. Best people I have. They'll extract her before Moretti even knows we're not coming." "What if they can't get to her in time?" Luca looked at her, and Emma saw the truth in his eyes before he spoke it. "Then we pray they're faster than Moretti's men are cruel." The SUV pulled up outside a nondescript building in Sunset Park. Luca's people were already there, 8 men and 2 women, all armed, all moving with the kind of efficiency that said they'd done extractions before. One of them, a woman with a scar across her jaw and cold eyes, approached Luca's window. "Target location is residential, 3-story house, minimal cover," she said. 2 tangos visible through windows, ground floor. Unknown how many total. Neighbors are home on both sides, so we need this quiet." "How quiet can you make it?" Luca asked. The woman's smile was sharp. "Quiet enough that nobody calls the police until we're already gone." "Good," Luca said. "Emma's mother comes out alive and unharmed. I don't care what you have to do to make that happen. Understood?" "Understood." The team moved out, 2 vehicles, shadows disappearing into Brooklyn's residential streets. Luca watched them go, then checked his watch. 23 minutes, he said. "We need to move." They drove toward Greenwich, the mansion where Emma had eaten dinner 3 days ago while Moretti smiled and threatened to kill everyone she loved. This time, Emma wasn't walking in as a captive playing a role. She was walking in as someone who'd learned exactly how brutal survival could be. Luca made another call. "Status on media?" He listened, nodded. "Perfect. Keep them 2 blocks out until I give the signal. The moment federal agents breach the property, you send every camera crew forward. I want this on live television before Moretti's lawyers can file an injunction." He ended the call and looked at Emma. "Last chance to stay in the car." "Not happening," Emma said. "You know this could go wrong in about 50 different ways," Luca said. "Moretti could kill us the moment we walk in. The federal raid could fail. My team might not reach your mother in time. You could die tonight, Emma. For real. No safety net." "I know," Emma said. She met his eyes. "But I'm done hiding. My father spent his life trying to expose these people. The least I can do is stand beside you when we finish what he started." Something shifted in Luca's expression. Pride, maybe, or respect, or something else Emma couldn't quite name. He reached out and cupped her face with one hand, thumb brushing her cheekbone in that gesture that had become almost familiar. "Your father would be proud of you," he said quietly. "I hope so," Emma whispered. Luca's hand dropped. He pulled out his gun, checked the magazine chambered around. "Stay behind me. If shooting starts, you hit the ground and you stay down. I don't care what's happening around you. You stay down until I tell you it's safe." "Okay." "I mean it, Emma," Luca said. His voice hardened. I've lost enough people I cared about. I'm not losing you too. The admission hung in the air between them, raw, unexpected, genuine. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but the SUV was already pulling through Moretti's gates. The mansion loomed ahead, lit up like a fortress. Armed men stood visible at the entrance. More would be hidden inside, Emma knew. Moretti wasn't the kind of man who invited enemies into his home without overwhelming force backing him up. The SUV stopped at the front entrance. Luca grabbed the duffel bag containing copies of Antonio Calla's evidence and opened his door. Emma followed. Marcus Webb stood waiting, flanked by 4 armed men. His smile was as smooth and dangerous as ever. Cutting it close, Mr. DeSantis. You have 7 minutes left. Where's Emma's mother? Luca demanded. Inside, Marcus said. Safe and sound, for now. Mr. Moretti is eager to see what you've brought him. They walked into the mansion, the same elegant foyer where Emma had stood 3 days ago feeling like prey. Now she felt like something sharper, something that had learned to bite back. Moretti waited in his study. Same leather chair, same air of controlled menace. But tonight, something was different. He looked tense, guarded, like a man who suspected the trap but couldn't quite see where the teeth were hidden. Luca, he said. Emma, I'm glad you reconsidered. Where's her mother? Luca repeated. Moretti gestured to a door Emma hadn't noticed before. It opened, and 2 men brought Emma's mother inside. Her hands were bound, tape covered her mouth, but her eyes, terrified, furious, relieved, locked onto Emma's face. Emma's chest cracked open. Mom! She's fine, Moretti said. As promised, now show me what you brought. Luca set the duffel bag on Moretti's desk and unzipped it. Files spilled out. Financial records, photographs, transaction histories. Everything Antonio Calla had spent years collecting. Everything that could destroy the empire Moretti had built. Moretti leaned forward, scanning pages with an expression that progressed from skeptical to genuinely impressed. Your father was thorough. I'll give him that. He was a lot of things, Emma said. Her voice came out cold. Thorough. Brave. A better man than you could ever be. Moretti's eyes flicked to her. Brave men die young, Emma. Your father proved that. So will you, Emma said. The room went silent. Marcus Webb's hand moved toward his gun. The men holding Emma's mother tensed. Luca shifted position slightly, putting himself between Emma and the nearest threat. Moretti studied Emma with renewed interest. Is that a threat? It's a promise, Emma said. My father died trying to expose you, but I'm going to finish what he started. And when federal agents drag you out of this house in handcuffs and every news camera in New York broadcasts your arrest to the world, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that a kindergarten teacher from Queens is the one who ended you. Moretti's expression darkened. You think I'm afraid of federal agents? I own half of them. The other half know better than to come after me. Not these ones, Luca said quietly. Sarah Chen is already moving. Warrant signed. Teams assembled. By the time you realize what's happening, it'll be too late to stop it. Moretti stood slowly. You're bluffing. Am I? Luca smiled. Check your phone, Salvatore. See if you can reach your people at the warehouse, or your accountant in the Caymans, or that federal agent you've been paying for the past 5 years. Go ahead. Try. Moretti pulled out his phone, dialed. His expression shifted from confident to concerned to genuinely alarmed as call after call went to voicemail. What did you do? He said. What your father should have done 20 years ago, Luca said. We burned down your empire while you were sitting here threatening Emma's mother. Moretti's mask finally cracked. Rage flooded his face, pure animal fury that Emma recognized as the real man underneath all that civilized pretense. He grabbed the gun from his desk drawer and aimed it at Emma. Then you both die here, he said, along with her mother, along with everyone you... The study windows exploded inward. Federal agents in full tactical gear poured through, 6 of them, moving fast, shouting commands, weapons trained on everyone in the room. More agents stormed through the door behind Emma. The mansion erupted into chaos, shouts, commands, the heavy thud of boots on marble floors as a small army of law enforcement flooded Moretti's home. FBI, hands up, drop the weapon. Moretti's gun swung toward the nearest agent. Marcus Webb moved to draw his weapon. Time dilated into slow motion. Emma saw Luca reaching for her, saw her mother struggling against the men holding her, saw federal agents' fingers tightening on triggers. Luca grabbed Emma and threw her to the floor, covering her body with his as gunfire erupted. The sound was deafening. Emma pressed her face against expensive carpet and felt Luca's weight pinning her down while bullets tore through the air above them. She heard men screaming, heard the wet thud of bodies hitting the floor, heard glass shattering and wood splintering, and someone shouting orders that got lost in the chaos. Then silence. Emma's ears rang. She tasted blood, had bitten her tongue when Luca tackled her. Her hand shook as Luca slowly lifted himself off her. "Stay down," he said. His voice sounded distant, muffled. "Don't move until they clear the room." Emma obeyed. She lay on the floor and counted her breaths and listened to federal agents securing the area. Someone was crying, high, broken sobs that Emma realized with a jolt were coming from her mother. "Clear!" someone shouted. "Suspects down! We need medics!" Hands grabbed Emma gently, helping her sit up. A female agent with kind eyes checked her for injuries. "Are you Emma Calloway?" "Yes," Emma managed. "You're safe now," the agent said. "It's over." Emma looked around the room. Marcus Webb lay motionless near the door, blood pooling beneath him. Two of Moretti's men were down, federal agents zip-tying their hands even though they weren't moving. Moretti himself sat slumped in his chair, clutching his shoulder where blood seeped between his fingers. His gun lay on the floor 3 feet away, but he was alive, wounded but breathing, conscious enough to stare at Emma with absolute hatred in his eyes. "Salvatore Moretti," an agent said, stepping forward with handcuffs. "You're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 50 other charges we'll read you properly at the station." Moretti said nothing, just kept staring at Emma while they cuffed his good hand to his wounded arm and dragged him to his feet. Sarah Chen appeared in the doorway, looking grim but satisfied. "Clean arrest, evidence secured, media's already broadcasting live footage of the raid." She looked at Emma. "Your father's investigation worked. Every name he documented, every transaction he traced, we've got them all." Emma's throat closed up. She nodded because she didn't trust herself to speak. Luca appeared beside her, checking her face and arms with careful hands. "You hurt?" "No," Emma said. "You?" "I'm fine." Luca looked toward Emma's mother, who was being helped to her feet by 2 agents removing her restraints. "Go to her." Emma crossed the study on unsteady legs. Her mother's arms wrapped around her immediately, holding her so tight Emma could barely breathe. They stood like that, holding each other in the ruins of Salvatore Moretti's study, while federal agents moved around them collecting evidence and photographing bodies and dismantling an empire that had terrorized the East Coast for decades. "I thought I'd lost you," her mother whispered against Emma's hair. "When those men took me, when they said you were bringing the evidence, I thought—" "I know," Emma said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Don't apologize." Her mother pulled back, holding Emma's face between her hands. "Your father would be so proud of you. You finished what he started. You did what he couldn't." Emma felt tears burn down her face. He deserved to see this. He deserved to watch Moretti get arrested. "He sees it," her mother said. "Wherever he is, he sees it. And he's proud." They held each other until federal agents gently suggested they should leave. Crime scene processing would take hours, and there would be statements needed, debriefings scheduled, paperwork that would probably take months to complete. Emma and her mother walked out of Moretti's mansion together. Outside, the night had turned into a circus. Police vehicles everywhere, ambulances treating wounded agents, and news vans, dozens of them, with cameras pointed at the mansion broadcasting live footage of federal agents carrying evidence boxes and leading handcuffed suspects toward waiting vehicles. Moretti emerged in handcuffs, blood staining his expensive shirt, and the cameras captured everything. His expression when he saw the media presence was almost worth the entire nightmare Emma had lived through. Almost. Luca found Emma near one of the ambulances where a paramedic was checking her mother. "Your people got to the house in time," she told him, 3 minutes before Moretti's deadline. "The men he had watching your mother never saw my team coming." "Thank you," Emma said. The words felt inadequate for what Luca had done, what he'd risked, but they were all she had. Luca's expression softened. "Your father asked me to protect you. I keep my promises." He asked you to protect me, Emma said, not destroy your entire life doing it. Moretti had connections to your business, didn't he? Taking him down means your operations get investigated too. Luca shrugged. I've been investigated before. I'll survive. Will you? Emma pressed. Because I'm pretty sure helping the feds take down a major crime boss makes you a lot of enemies. Probably, Luca agreed. But it also makes me someone who chose the right side when it mattered. That's worth something in our world. Emma studied his face. This dangerous man who'd walked into her life 6 days ago and turned everything upside down. What happens now? With us? Luca was quiet for a long moment. Around them, federal agents worked. News crews reported. Manhattan glittered across the water. The world kept spinning like it always did, indifferent to individual suffering and survival. That depends, Luca said finally. You married me to survive. The threat's gone now. Moretti's going to prison for the rest of his life. His organization is scattered. You're safe, Emma, which means you're free. Emma's chest tightened. Free to what? Free to go back to your life, Luca said. Back to teaching. Back to Queens. Back to being someone who doesn't sleep with a gun under her pillow and armed guards in the hallway. What if I don't want that anymore? Emma asked. Luca's eyes sharpened. What do you want? Emma thought about that. About her father's investigation and Moretti's threats and Preston's betrayal. About learning to walk through rooms full of criminals without showing fear. About standing in the ruins of a crime boss's study and watching federal agents dismantle everything he'd built. About the way Luca had looked at her when he'd promised to keep her alive. The way he'd covered her body with his when bullets started flying. The way he'd kept every promise her father had extracted from him, even when it cost him everything. I want, Emma said slowly, to stop pretending. We told everyone we were married. We sold it so convincingly that people believed it. And somewhere in the middle of survival and strategy and lies we told to stay alive, I stopped knowing where the performance ended and real feelings began. Luca's expression was carefully neutral. Emma, why estás algo esa? I'm not asking for forever, Emma interrupted. I'm not asking for promises you can't keep. But I'm asking for honesty about what this was. About what it could be if we stopped treating it like a game we're playing. Luca looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached out and cupped her face. That gesture that had become theirs, that started as performance and became something else entirely. You want honesty? He said quietly. Here it is. I walked into that country club planning to protect you because I owed your father a debt. I kissed you in front of 200 people to establish ownership and keep you safe. I brought you to my home and put guards outside your door and taught you how to survive in my world, because that's what your father asked me to do. Emma's heart sank. Luca, I'm not finished, he said. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Somewhere between that first kiss and tonight, you stopped being a debt I owed and became something I couldn't afford to lose. You stood in Moretti's study and threatened a man who's killed people for less, and you didn't flinch. You walked into hell beside me and came out the other side still standing. And when I covered you with my body tonight, when those bullets were flying, all I could think was that I'd burn down the entire world before I let anything happen to you. Emma's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying, Luca said, that we started this as a lie. But somewhere along the way, at least for me, it stopped being one. And if you want to walk away, if you want to go back to your old life and forget I exist, I'll understand. But if you want to stay, if you want to figure out what this could be when we're not running for our lives, then I'm asking you to stay. Emma stared at him, at this man who'd claimed her to save her, who'd kept his word even when it meant war, who was looking at her now like she was the only thing in the world worth having. I should go back to teaching, Emma said. I should move back to Queens and rebuild my normal life and try to forget the last 6 days ever happened. Yes, Luca agreed quietly. You should. But I won't, Emma said. Because my father spent his whole life trying to do the right thing the right way, and it got him killed. And I spent my whole life trying to fit into a world that never really wanted me. And for the first time since he died, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Even if that's beside a criminal? Luca asked. Even then, Emma said. Especially then. Luca's smile was slow, genuine, and absolutely devastating. He leaned down and kissed her, not the claiming kiss from the country club, not the desperate kiss in his penthouse, but something new. Something that tasted like truth and felt like promise and suggested futures neither of them had planned, but both of them wanted. When he pulled back, Emma's mother was watching them with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. "He's dangerous," her mother said. "I know," Emma replied. "He's going to break your heart." "Maybe," Emma said, "or maybe he'll be the first person who doesn't." Her mother studied Luca with the kind of assessment only mothers could perform, seeing past the expensive suit and dangerous reputation to whatever existed underneath. Finally, she nodded. "Your father trusted him," she said. "That's enough for me." Sarah Chen approached with paperwork and promises of witness protection if they wanted it. Emma declined. She'd spent enough of her life hiding. If Moretti's remaining associates wanted to come after her, they'd find her exactly where she planned to be, standing beside Luca DeSantis and daring them to try. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of depositions and court appearances and media interviews Emma never wanted to give but understood were necessary. Her father's investigation became front-page news. Antonio Cala's name was everywhere. Newspapers, television, online articles dissecting his years-long effort to expose corruption that reached the highest levels of business and government. 53 people were arrested in the aftermath. Moretti's organization collapsed overnight. Preston Vale's father was indicted on money laundering charges. Preston himself disappeared, probably to whatever country would take someone with his connections and no extradition treaty. Emma went back to teaching, but she didn't go back to Queens. She moved into Luca's penthouse instead, and every morning she woke up to floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan and the man beside her who'd promised to keep her alive and somehow kept that promise, even when it should have been impossible. They had a real wedding 6 months later. Small ceremony, immediate family only. No champagne towers or string quartets or 200 witnesses. Just Emma in a simple white dress and Luca in a suit that somehow looked more dangerous than the one he'd worn when he'd crashed Victoria's engagement party. Emma's mother cried through the entire ceremony. Victoria attended, subdued and apologetic, trying to rebuild their relationship after months of silence. A few of Luca's people showed up, the ones who'd helped extract Emma's mother, the ones who'd moved evidence boxes in the middle of the night, the ones who'd proven that loyalty actually meant something even in a world built on lies and violence. When the officiant asked if Emma took Luca as her husband, she said yes without hesitation. When Luca said his vows, promising to protect, cherish, and stand beside her for whatever time they had, Emma believed every word. They exchanged rings that meant something this time, kissed while their small audience applauded, walked out of that courthouse as husband and wife for real. No performance, no strategy, no survival plan. Just two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and decided to stay together when the danger passed. Later that night, Emma stood at those penthouse windows again, looking down at the city that had almost killed her. Luca wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Regrets?" he asked. "About marrying you?" Emma smiled. "Not a single one. About any of it. The investigation, the danger, the life you gave up." Emma thought about that. About her father and his secrets. About Preston's betrayal. About standing in Moretti's study while bullets flew and federal agents stormed in and empires crumbled. About the fact that none of it, absolutely none of it, had turned out the way anyone expected. "My father used to tell me that the hardest thing in the world is choosing to do what's right when doing what's wrong would be so much easier," Emma said quietly. He spent his whole life making that choice, and it killed him, but it also exposed people who deserved to be exposed. It brought justice to families who'd been waiting years for it. It mattered. "Yes," Luca agreed. "It did." "So no," Emma said. "No regrets. About any of it. Because if my father hadn't investigated Moretti, he wouldn't have reached out to you. If he hadn't reached out to you, you wouldn't have claimed me at that party. And if you hadn't claimed me, I'd probably be dead right now instead of standing here with you." Luca's arms tightened around her. "When you put it that way." "Besides," Emma said, turning in his arms to face him, "I like who I've become. I spent my whole life trying to be the person other people expected. Quiet, polite, someone who fit into rooms full of Preston Vales and their families, and I was miserable. And now Now I'm someone who threatened a crime boss to his face and lived to tell about it, Emma said. Someone who married a dangerous man and doesn't apologize for it. Someone who looks at Manhattan and sees possibilities instead of barriers. I like her better than the person I was before. Luca studied her face, and Emma saw something that might have been pride in his eyes. Your father would have liked her too. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. You think so? I know so, Luca said. He pulled her close, and Emma pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his scent and feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her cheek. He wanted you safe. But more than that, he wanted you strong. He wanted you to survive whatever came after he was gone. And you did, Emma. You survived everything they threw at you and came out the other side still fighting. We survived it, Emma corrected. Together. Together, Luca agreed. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the penthouse that had started as a cage and become something else entirely. Below them, Manhattan hummed with its endless noise. Millions of people living millions of lives, most of them never knowing how close Emma Calloway had come to disappearing into the dark. But she hadn't disappeared. She'd fought back. She'd finished what her father started. She'd taken down an empire and survived the war that followed. And somewhere in the middle of survival and strategy and lies that became truth, she'd found something she never expected to find. She'd found home, not in a place, not in the penthouse or the city or the life she'd built from the ashes of the old one. Home in the arms of a man who'd promised to protect her and kept that promise even when it cost him everything. Home in the knowledge that she'd become someone her father would be proud of. Home in the understanding that sometimes the only way to survive the darkness is to learn to carry your own light. Emma Calloway had spent the first 26 years of her life trying to be someone she wasn't. She'd spend the rest of it being exactly who she was meant to be. And if that meant being married to one of the most dangerous men in New York, standing beside him while he rebuilt his empire into something less corrupt and more honest than what came before, well, that was a life worth living. 3 years later, Emma stood in her kindergarten classroom watching 5-year-olds struggle with alphabet blocks and remembering a version of herself who'd thought teaching was the safest career choice she could make. That Emma had been terrified of everything: failure, judgment, the weight of other people's expectations. This Emma was different. She still taught, still loved watching children's faces light up when they finally understood something that had confused them moments before. But she also sat on the board of a foundation that helped victims of organized crime rebuild their lives. She spoke publicly about her father's investigation and the importance of exposing corruption. She'd written a book about survival and justice that had somehow become a bestseller. She was no longer someone who shrank away from difficult conversations or powerful people who thought they could intimidate her. She was someone who'd stared down a crime boss and lived to tell about it. Luca met her after school most days. He'd gone mostly legitimate, divested from anything that looked questionable, transformed his organization into security consulting and private investigation work that operated within the bounds of the law. He'd never be a saint, but he'd stopped being someone federal prosecutors actively wanted to arrest. That felt like progress. They drove home together through Manhattan traffic, and Emma watched her city slide past, the place that had almost destroyed her, the place she'd claimed as her own by refusing to let it break her. "Dinner with your mother tonight," Luca reminded her. "She specifically requested we not be late." Emma smiled. Her mother had softened toward Luca over the years, accepting that her daughter had found something real with someone dangerous, and that sometimes real was more important than safe. "We won't be late," Emma promised. They arrived at the penthouse to find her mother already there. Maria had let her in, and she'd made herself at home the way she always did. She hugged Emma tight and kissed Luca's cheek and made dinner conversation about normal things like Victoria's wedding plans and the new restaurant that opened downtown. Nobody mentioned Moretti. He was serving life without parole in a federal supermax prison where visitors weren't allowed and his remaining associates couldn't reach him. That chapter was closed, finished, done. After her mother left, Emma found herself back at those floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at Manhattan's endless lights. Luca appeared beside her with 2 glasses of wine. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "My father," Emma said. "How he'd react if he could see us now, see what happened after he died. Whether he'd think it was worth it." "Worth what?" "Dying," Emma said quietly. sacrificing himself to expose people who deserved it, leaving my mother alone, leaving me alone. Whether he'd look at what we accomplished and think the cost was justified. Luca was quiet for a moment. I think, he said finally, your father knew exactly what would happen if he kept investigating. And he did it anyway. Not because he thought the cost was justified, but because he believed some things matter more than safety, more than comfort, more than long lives lived in quiet compromise. Like what? Emma asked. Like truth, Luca said. Like justice. Like making sure his daughter grew up in a world slightly less corrupt than the one he found. He couldn't guarantee you'd be happy, couldn't guarantee you'd be safe, but he could guarantee that people who hurt innocent families would face consequences. And he chose that, knowing what it would cost him. Emma's throat tightened. That's a terrible choice to have to make. Yes, Luca agreed. But it's the choice every good person makes eventually, between the life they want and the world they want to create. Your father chose the world. And because he did, 53 criminals went to prison. Dozens of families got justice. The city became marginally less dangerous for people who couldn't protect themselves. And I lost him, Emma whispered. Yes, Luca said. You lost him. And that's not fair. It's not right. But Emma, look what you did with that loss. You could have hidden. Could have pretended you didn't know what he'd found. Could have stayed quiet and safe and alive. But you finished his investigation instead. You stood up to the people who killed him. You made sure his sacrifice mattered. Emma leaned into Luca's warmth. Does it? Matter, I mean. Moretti's in prison, but there are 100 other Morettis out there. Men just like him, doing the same things, hurting the same people. Did we really change anything? We changed your world, Luca said, and your mother's world, and every person whose life your father's evidence protected. That's not nothing, Emma. That's not nothing at all. Emma thought about that, about individual lives versus systemic change, about the difference between saving everyone and saving someone, about her father's belief that doing the right thing mattered even when it felt impossibly small against the scope of everything wrong in the world. I miss him, Emma said. I know, Luca said, but he's not really gone. He's in the foundation you built, in the book you wrote, in the way you walk into rooms full of people who used to terrify you and refuse to be intimidated. He's in you, Emma. Every good thing he was, you carry forward. Emma turned in Luca's arms, looking up at his face. This man who'd saved her life and then loved her, who'd given up his criminal empire to build something better, who looked at her like she was the only thing in the world worth protecting. Thank you, she said. For what? For keeping your promise, Emma said. For protecting me when my father couldn't. For teaching me how to protect myself. For being exactly who you said you'd be even when it cost you everything. Luca's smile was soft. Some promises are worth keeping. Yes, Emma agreed. They are. They stood together at those windows watching Manhattan breathe and pulse and live. Somewhere in the city, Emma's kindergarten students were going to bed. Her mother was driving home safely. Victoria was planning a wedding that wouldn't end in disaster. Sarah Chen was prosecuting another case. Somewhere, justice was happening in small, imperfect ways. And here, 40 stories above the chaos, Emma Calloway DeSantis finally felt at peace. Not because her life was perfect, not because the danger was permanently gone, not because she'd stopped missing her father or questioning whether his sacrifice had been worth it, but because she'd learned the most important lesson her father had tried to teach her, that survival isn't about staying safe. It's about deciding what's worth fighting for, and then fighting for it with everything you have, even when you're terrified, even when the odds are impossible, even when the cost is higher than you ever wanted to pay. Emma had survived the worst year of her life. She'd stood in the ruins of her father's dreams and built something new from the wreckage. She'd married a dangerous man and made him less dangerous through the simple act of loving him enough that he wanted to be better. She'd taken down a criminal empire and lived to tell about it. And now, finally, she was home. Not in the penthouse, not in Manhattan, not in any physical place that could be taken away. Home in herself. In the knowledge that she was strong enough to survive whatever came next, that she'd always been strong enough. She just hadn't known it until circumstances forced her to find out. Emma closed her eyes and let herself feel it. The weight of survival, the sweetness of peace, the complicated joy of being exactly where she was meant to be, even though the path to get here had nearly destroyed her. I love you, she said to Luca. She didn't say it often. Both of them understood that actions mattered more than words, but sometimes the words needed to be spoken anyway. I know, Luca said. I love you too. And standing there in the darkness with Manhattan glittering below, Emma finally understood what her father had been trying to tell her all along. That love isn't about safety. It's about choosing someone and then standing beside them when everything goes wrong. It's about looking at a person's worst parts and deciding they're still worth staying for. It's about building something together that's stronger than the sum of its parts. Her father had loved her enough to die protecting her. She loved him enough to finish what he'd started. And she loved Luca enough to build a future together that neither of them had planned, but both of them wanted. That was enough. It would always be enough. Emma opened her eyes and looked at her husband, this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly gentle man who'd walked into her life at its worst moment and refused to leave even when leaving would have been safer. Come to bed, she said. Luca smiled and took her hand, and together they walked away from the windows and into the rest of their lives. Whatever came next, and there would always be something coming next, because that's how the world worked, they'd face it the way they'd faced everything else, together, standing beside each other in the darkness, carrying their own light.